think I'm live. Hi guys, happy December. I think, okay, yeah, I'm live. Oh, it has a weird, okay, sounds good. I'm live. Looks good on this end. I swear I can never, I can never have a video without some sort of issue, or at least something seeming like it's gonna be an issue. All right, happy December. This is a very huge month with like so many things going on. We're just gonna go ahead and dive in. By the way, I have like 3 of these selenite wands left in my shop, and once I sell those, I'm gonna re-up on some more of these and some more moldavite, which I sold out of like the day I bought it. But those are available in my shop if you guys are interested. I always use it like before or after a video, before or after a client session. It's really good. It's like smudging, like sage, but without having to actually do that, and just kind of waving a crystal wand around. It clears the energy. Okay, let me head over to here really quick. And yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen and dive in. Those of you who are Patreon members, you have access to, of course, the apprentice cheat sheet, which you're going to want to print out. And also the monthly calendar. Those of you here on YouTube, you'll be able to screenshot it, but you guys know the resolution is not that great. All right. My nose is so runny. Sorry for all the sniffles. It's just gonna be. All right, so it is December. December is one of our 2 solstice months, and at both solstice, both the winter solstice and the summer solstice, it will be winter solstice for those of us here in the northern hemisphere. I know many of you, like a ridiculous amount of you, especially you Patreon members, and my like actual legitimate clients. So many of you guys live in Australia. It's mind-blowing to me how many of you guys live in Australia. So for you guys, it is opposite. It's opposite. You will be in the height of the light during this month. It will be the summer solstice for you. And for those of us up north, it will be the height of the darkness. Our longest nights and our shortest days. And during both the winter solstice and the summer solstice, I'm realizing I'm like covering up this part right here, like the most important part too. And I don't have it on another slide. Okay, hold on. Just for the sake of my, just humor me for a second here. Yeah, that works. And then, where'd that other thing go, right? Here, okay, because I want to be able to point at this, and I'm not going to be able to do it that way. And maybe if I go like this, you'll be able to see all the words. Okay, so during the solstice months, so during both the winter solstice and the summer solstice, our sun aligns with this very significant area of the sky, which I have begun to call the Axis Mundi. Hopefully you guys have watched the video that I've done on this already. If you have not, it is one of the several videos linked down below. I have a bunch of videos linked down below. I guess we'll go over them a little bit later when we start to talk about a couple more of these things. But the Axis Mundi is this area of the sky that is activated during both solstice periods, and it's the opposition between the pole star and the galactic center, which is very beautifully illustrated here. Again, if anybody knows where this image is from, please, for the love of God, tell me. I found it on a very random Instagram post during the last time this point was aligned, during the summer. Right as I was diving into this whole Axis Mundi concept and this opposition between the galactic center and the pole star, and then I found this image which perfectly depicts what it is I'm trying to express. This sort of polar pillar, the world tree, the Axis Mundi, this point where our two polarizations, our peak light and our peak darkness, can find a singularity between the two. It's where we find the middle pillar between that of light and darkness, or that sort of galactic activation of singularity with source, much like a black hole is, that sits beyond the duality of light and dark, yin and yang, the sun and the moon. And we activate this sort of like galactic consciousness within us. And this area of the sky is activated twice a year during the solstices. During the summer solstice, the sun is conjunct the pole star and in opposition to the galactic center. And during the winter solstice this month, our sun is actually conjunct the center of the galactic center and in opposition to the pole star. So this is some stuff we're going to be talking about a lot here tonight. This is stuff I have dove into extensively, like you guys, extensively, hours and hours and hours of deep research and me then regurgitating it to you here on the internet. All of those links are found down below, and many of those videos, including the one that's on the astrology of black holes that I did back during the equinox when the super galactic center was activated, a lot of those videos are Patreon only videos, and I link them down below in the description. So I would definitely watch those because this is a concept I have dove into so deep, and I'm only going to be able to do it like briefly scratch the surface here tonight. So those of you who are Patreon members, you guys already know what I'm talking about. This is the month to activate this middle pillar within you. For those of us here in the north, we will be activating this deep within our subconscious, the unconscious, the realm of the goddess, the realm of darkness. And for those of you down under, you are really going to be activating this more so in the realm of light. So it is going to be kind of a flip-flop for you. You guys know the type of astrology most people are familiar with is astrology that is specific to the northern western hemisphere. Tropical Western astrology is focused on the north. It's actually like a lot different for you guys down below. And I'm a firm believer that you guys really should have your own system. And if you happen to live down there and you are interested in astrology, joining my Patreon would be really cool because we have a whole thread going from people who live down there who have these sort of insights when it comes to like the mirror of what it is that I'm talking about. And we call it the Southern Mystery Thread. So it's fun. Okay. So this month we have the Sun and Mercury and Venus all transiting over the galactic center, and the Sun transiting over the Great Attractor. Mercury and Venus already did. They did so last month, and I just didn't tell you. I didn't tell you. I forgot. I wasn't paying attention. I don't know. There was so much going on last month, but it already happened last month. The Sun will make its alignment with the Great Attractor. So what is that? We're going to quickly explain that while we're here on this slide because it has my... the chat is gone. I'm trying to find the chat again. N says, hey, I finally am able to see a live broadcast on the East Coast. It's Bruh from Patreon. Hi, Bruh. I'm looking forward to our next session too. I'll be sending out emails to all of my December clients, I think tomorrow to schedule our sessions for this month. Okay. So really quick before we move on, I did format that pretty good. You guys can see all the words. My Virgo placements are pleased. I'm going to really quick explain how space is laid out so we can kind of get an idea of what these points are, because we are projecting so far beyond the confines of traditional astrology, which is ruled by the egoic sun and our particular solar system. We are going to be pushing out to our entire galaxy. And we're going to be talking about this a lot more in our 2 Patreon videos this month for the 2 moons, one of which aligns with the Great Attractor, the other aligns with the Galactic Center. So we're going to be really diving into this realm of galactic astrology over on Patreon. But really quick, okay. We are all aware that the planets in our solar system revolve around our sun, right? Well, the sun has a sun, and that is the galactic center. The sun and all the other stars in the Milky Way galaxy, they all rotate around the galactic center. Stars like the Pleiades and Orion and things like that. We actually are on one of these outer arms of the Milky Way known as the Orion Arm. This is the center of our own galaxy, which the sun will align with this month. And this is found at about 27 degrees of Sagittarius. So if you have any planets near 27 degrees of Sagittarius or 27 degrees of Gemini, then those planets are either in conjunction or opposition to both the pole star and the galactic center. The pole star falls at 28 degrees of Gemini. They're literally exactly opposite each other. Right now, at this point in history, we have had other pole stars in the past, like Alpha Draconis or Vega Lyra, and when those were the pole star, this was not the case. The pole star and the galactic center were not in alignment. They are now during our particular incarnation, so I think that's why so much alchemy and transmutation and the actual finding of the middle path, which has never really been a thing before. Maybe back in Atlantis before the split and the fall, but for as far back as we actually have historical records, there's very much been a split. We live in a realm of duality. Okay, so this is the center of the Milky Way galaxy, all right? That's the center of our own galaxy. And that's the center of another form of cosmic consciousness, right? We have the sun at the center of our solar system, and that's a form of consciousness, right? And then we have the galactic center at the center of our galaxy. Well, the galactic center of the Milky Way galaxy, the Andromeda galaxy, and like a shit ton of other galaxies. I used to say 45 because that's what astronomers used to say. Last I heard it was 130, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a lot more than that because they keep adding more to it and they keep discovering more. So the galactic center, the Andromeda galactic center, and 130 other galaxies, they all rotate around the super galactic center, which is the black hole that we got a picture of back in 2019, the first ever black hole we ever saw. It's actually very hard for us to see the center of our own galaxy because we have to look through like all of these rings, all of these spirals, but we did just get a picture of this as well. I think it was a little earlier this year or late last year. I can't actually remember when. Okay, so the Milky Way, the Andromeda galaxy, 130 other galaxies. They all rotate around the supergalactic center. That actually falls at 2 degrees of Libra, and it aligns with our sun during the equinox periods, while our sun aligns with the galactic center during the solstice periods, okay? So that is a very large center of a very large form of like cosmic consciousness. It's a very old black hole that was believed to have been one of the first stars to originate after the Big Bang. Black holes are advanced suns. They are suns that have lived out their entire life and they've pierced this fabric of space-time and they've moved on to something else, right? And so the supergalactic center is the center of our super cluster, this cluster of galaxies, but it is not the center of our biggest cosmic family, okay? We have something even bigger than our super galaxy, and that is called I always pronounce this word wrong. I should have wrote it here so you guys could see how it looks. Lachesis supercluster, okay? And this is a picture of, Yeah. And this is a picture of that. This is our vast cosmic family. This little red dot here is indicative of the Great Attractor. So the Great Attractor is actually the center of our biggest known cosmic logos, our biggest known cosmic mind. It too falls in Sagittarius. Both the galactic center and the Great Attractor fall in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is literally about expanding our mind, pushing beyond the confines of what is seen and known and going into the great beyond, right? So this actually falls at, I have the exact degree here, 14 degrees and 2 minutes of Sagittarius. So right around 14 degrees of Sagittarius is the Great Attractor. So unlike the galactic center and the supergalactic center, we don't actually know what the Great Attractor is. It is this center point, the area of our universe that has the densest, most strongest gravitational pull. And I don't even know how many galaxies it is. It's a ridiculous amount, way more than 130. It's a whole bunch of super clusters, like our little 130 cluster. This is a shit ton of those little clusters, all being pulled towards this central point. And nobody really knows why. It's literally a mystery. And when I talk to my clients during our sessions and I point out that they have this point in their chart, it aligns with my Saturn, I always point out that it's literally aligned with the unknown because we do not know what it is. Some astronomers, even like the muggly kind, think that it's God. It's everything merging back with 0 point, perhaps much like this singularity that's found at the center of a black hole or this middle pillar we are trying to activate. The consensus is that it is a very, 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 very dense area of dark matter or dark energy, which is what they're studying at CERN because I think they understand how important it is to everything and how it really is the material or the energy responsible for both the expansion and the contraction of our universe. It represents much like what mystics call ether, this like primordial element that creates. But it is unknown and mysterious, and the Great Attractor very much represents that. And so this month we have a lot of these activations with these galactic placements. And this is what Sagittarius really represents, is this pushing into the unknown, this exploring the vastness of philosophy or our terrain, which for Sag is usually just like, traveling around, maybe like backpacking across Europe or something. But really in an esoteric sense, it's expanding our consciousness as far as we can. And the more our scientists discover about our cosmos, the more we unlock these things esoterically within our psyche as well. It's like a quantum entanglement type scenario. Okay, I know that was like a whole spiel, and we're just gonna roll with it. It's gonna be a really long video, you guys. I even pulled like way more cards than I normally do. I don't know. I have a huge Sag stellium. I have my I have my moon and my Uranus aligned with the galactic center. I have my Saturn aligned and the pole star. I have my Saturn aligned with the Great Attractor. Like, my chart is so lit up this month. I'm just gonna talk. Okay, so we're gonna talk about that. We're also gonna talk about this Mars eclipse that will be exact the same day as our Gemini moon, the moon that actually falls opposite the Great Attractor. And this is the period of, actually a 2-year period. This only happens once every 2 years, when Mars is the closest it can be to Earth. Therefore, it is the biggest and brightest in the sky. And this happens to coincide with an eclipse of Mars by the moon. So I don't know if some of you guys watch my stories. I know it's so censored over there. Amanda, hi love. Amanda has been in the black hole rabbit hole with me, my astrology of black holes video that's linked down below, sent her in this, because she has them all in her chart too, but it sent her like down in this. She is with me. Okay, what was I saying? Does anybody remember what I was saying? Mars eclipse and something about it. Mars is going to be really close to Earth. The moon, okay, so you guys see my stories sometimes, and I'm always looking at the sky, and I'm always showing you, like, oh, this is this planet, oh, this is this. Well, last night I showed how the moon was conjunct Jupiter in the sky. But they weren't, like, on top of each other like an eclipse. That doesn't always happen. It only happens sometimes when the planets are in a certain length away from Earth, right? And it's actually oftentimes called being occulted. I don't know if astronomers use that word. They might. I don't know if astronomers do, but astrologers certainly do. Because occult means hidden, right? So when a planet like the moon moves in front of Mars and completely blocks it out, which it doesn't always do. Like the moon transits around the zodiac every month. It comes up against Mars literally every month, but usually it's like this, with like one on top and the other on the bottom. But the same day as our full moon this month, the moon will exactly be passing over Mars, and it will be occulting it, and it will be eclipsing it. And this is a couple of days before the Artemis mission is set to return to Earth. So we're definitely in the midst of like a Mars winter ritual, which is something that I've already been diving into here on YouTube. That #1 video is linked down below. And I'm going to be revisiting this this ritual that we're, as a collective, in right now. Later on the month, I'm not sure when. We'll talk about it when we get to the calendar. I think I want to wait until after the solstice. I think I want to wait until the last week of December, because I think a lot more is going to happen, and then I feel like I'll just have a part 3, so we'll just do a really long part 2. But we're going to talk about that. It's happening the same day as the full moon, which is really significant. That full moon is literally in the constellation of Orion, another archetype that is strongly tied to the sort of elite Mars dogma that we'll expand on. Okay, winter solstice. This is all stuff we'll get into when we get into the cards, okay? So those of you who are over on Patreon, you have, actually, this looks really clear. This looks like super in focus. I don't know why it looks so good today. But those of you who are Patreon members, you have access to the PDF of this. Feel free, print it out, write on it. I did forget to write one thing on here, and that was America's Pluto return, which is on the 28th. So you want to add that in there. I forgot, and I'm not going to go back and change it. This is when I remind everybody to please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. Also, hit the little bell so that you are notified whenever I have new videos that come out. We'll be meeting here. Today is our monthly live stream, and we're going to be having a B&B episode where we read the book that we're reading right now called The Sign of the Serpent. It's part 2, so if you want to catch up on that, that's linked down below too. We're going to have a rabbit hole video. These are all here on YouTube, but the full moon and the new moon live streams, where we're really going to be diving in deep to those specific energies, those are only on Patreon. So if you want to join Patreon, my link is down below. You can join you can literally pay whatever you want. It's a sliding scale. All videos are available for all tier levels. Just pay whatever you can afford. Times are literally tough for everybody right now, so just whatever you can. I am all booked for December and already kind of booking into January, and I'm planning on taking February into March off. I'm taking all of Pisces season off. So if you want to book a session with me, now is the time. Otherwise, it's not going to be until the spring. So again, my website is linked down below. And yeah, Those of you here on YouTube, feel free to take a screenshot, and we're going to dive in. Oh, I forgot to make the little key, and I forgot to put we're going to talk about this on the next slide, but I forgot to put the little color code, so I guess I'll just kind of tell you what's going on here. The pink ones are our live stream dates. The light blue ones are our lunations. You know, we can have our Gemini moon on the 7th, opposite the Great Attractor. We have our Capricorn new moon on the 23rd, conjunct the galactic center, because it's at the beginning of Capricorn. So those are our lunations. The black ones are like really significant shifts in energy. Planet stationing direct. Planets entering a new sign, planets stationing retrograde, things like that. The yellow ones are stronger transits, squares, conjunctions, oppositions, things we're really going to feel, as opposed to more free-flowing energies like trines or sextiles that I don't really put a color, because they kind of come and go. They lend harmonious, free-flowing energy. They bring benefits and harmony and whatnot, but they don't really manifest things into our reality like conjunctions, squares, and oppositions are, which are here yellow. The green ones are our galactic esoteric transits, whether it's this month it's all really galactic, you know, it's everything kind of transiting over the galactic center, the GC, or the Great Attractor, the GA. I even have the exact times written here if you guys are into that sort of thing. I am. I mostly make this for myself. It might be like a little too much for some of you guys. It's cool. I make this for me. Okay, we talked about that. The red ones are like super significant things to look out for, like the winter solstice. Like the days that are pink are really significant days, like the winter solstice and the sun conjunct the galactic center. Those are really big days. I also put the Artemis return date here. And what else? What am I going to talk about? Okay, the blue ones. So you guys have probably heard me talk about this before, unless you're like brand new. You've heard me say this, but I guess I have to keep saying it for the new people, right? I don't know. I feel like I repeat myself so much, but I don't know how to not do that. So, astrology in general, Western astrology, has pretty much cut the moon kind of out of the equation. They look at it more so when the sun is involved with the moon. So a full moon or new moon, they'll pay attention to those. But the moon transiting throughout the month is often overlooked in the West. The East, they pay very strong attention to the moon. In sidereal or Vedic astrology, they pay very close attention to the moon stationing. I'm a firm believer of the polarity. So what we have here down at the bottom is the fixed stars or asteroids or black holes, these more etheric, out there points, these galactic esoteric points that I use, plus the fixed stars, which help to initiate us into that realm. The moon transiting around it throughout the whole month. So while it takes the sun an entire year to go around the zodiac, the moon does that in a 28-day period. It makes a connection with every single one of these points every single month. And so that's what we have down here at the bottom is the moon's transits for every day, making points with significant stars, asteroids, or black holes. I think that this is a way to kind of rectify the polarization that has happened in the realm of astrology. So what we kind of have here is a mirroring of multiple systems. We have the sun and the planets, the sun being very strongly tied to the seasons and therefore tropical astrology. And so we have the transits through a tropical year represented here. And then we also have the moon transiting through a sidereal month. And so this is like where the stars actually are as opposed to the shifting of the seasons. And so this is kind of a composite of multiple systems together to bring cohesion. We'll talk about it as we go, but that's kind of what's here. All right, you guys have probably also heard me mention this before, is that astrology, particularly in the past, was an elitist practice. Like, the only people who had access to it were royalty, priests, priestesses, this sort of esoteric class, and those who were in the elite ranks of society. The vast amount of our ancestors, the vast amount of the collective, were focused on the other side of the sky, right? And so I always love to use these sort of diagrams to explain what the hell it is that I'm talking about. But for December, we have our sun in Sagittarius, and it will be moving into Capricorn. This is the seasons of the astrology that we are in right now, the astrological season that we are in right now. And, you know, the kings and the queens and whatnot, maybe not so much even the queens, but maybe, depending on what time period we're talking about. But the kings and the queens and the clergy, they would have known this, right? They would have had astronomers and astrologers who were tracking the sun, and they would know this. But this is where our sun is during the day. So we're not really able to see the background of the stars to it. However, wherever our sun is, our earth is in the opposite sign. So we have the masculine polarity dominating the area of the sky governed by Sagittarius and Capricorn throughout this month. So our masculine consciousness, our light, is focused over there. But that does not mean that our feminine polarity does not exist. The earth will always be transiting the opposite signs. And that is the stars that we see at nighttime. I can't remember if I made moderators. I remember that I was going to make moderators to get rid of those freaking things. I don't know how to... Oh, remove. I can do it. There. Haha. Stupid porn bots. Okay. What was I saying? Okay, so the sun is in these signs. Our masculine polarity is activating these signs. And the earth will be in Gemini and moving into Taurus. And this is also the stars that we see in our night sky. So while the priests and the kings were well aware of where the sun was, these were the stories that were up in the sky that our ancestors were pointing out and telling tales about while they were sitting around the bonfire and, you know, hanging out with each other as, you know, the peasants did to entertain one another. And so these were the stories that the vast amount of us told during this time. And so it's important to know what you're looking at. You know, one of my slogans is look up. I really think, like, even astrologers, like, they don't look at the sky, dude. Like, I was watching a documentary, some, like, Nova documentary. I think it was on the Galactic Center. And they were interviewing an astronomer out front of one of those, like, radio telescopes to where, like, they're not really looking at space. They're looking at data sets that come back from this telescope, right? They're not even really, like, looking up at, like, Mars and stuff. These guys are way more focused on data, which is how a lot of astrologers are too. And he's saying some shit, I don't know what he's saying, but he looks up and he's like, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, that right there. Oh, I think that's Mars. Oh, maybe it's Jupiter. And I was like, bro, you, a professional astrologer, a professional astronomer, with God knows how many degrees from God knows where, you don't know if that is Mars or Jupiter. I know where Mars and Jupiter are at all times. Besides, they look so different. Mars is red. It's so red. Like, if you can't tell the difference between those two, it's very sad. But anyway, most astrologers cannot, and they tend to not look up. And this is a month to look up. Not only are we going to have that Mars eclipse that we will be able to watch, we will see Mars, this big bright red dot in the sky, the biggest and brightest that it will be for 2 years. We'll be able to watch him, and then we'll be able to watch this huge, I don't know if it's super huge, it's certainly not a supermoon, but this big full moon move over Mars this month. Occult it, hide it, and then align with it in a sort of significant way, channeling that energy through this sort of illumination that will be happening. These are some of the constellations that we can see up in the sky this month that are highlighted within our unconscious mind, within our feminine polarities. So while our conscious mind is very much focused on this realm of Sagittarius, this philosophical expansion, this like climbing of the mountain of initiation, has a lot to do with striving and pushing forward, our feminine consciousness is in the realm of Gemini and in the realm, and we'll be moving into the realm of Cancer. We'll be moving into the realm of Cancer. And so we are very receptive at the same time. And it's important to know these things because these are just as highlighted. As you can see, wherever the sun is, the earth is in the opposite sign. You actually all have an earth sign in astrology. Your earth is placed in your chart exactly opposite your sun. So my sun falls at 5 degrees of Libra, which means that my earth is at 5 degrees of Aries. And you can even put it in some astrology softwares. You can do it in Luna. Okay. And then these are some of the archetypes that are up there as well. Perseus, the hero, the sea serpent that he defeats with the alchemized wound of Medusa. Those of you who are Patreon members, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to dive into it here. But also Aries, this initiation of the self is very much being triggered within our unconscious mind during this time. Okay, let's go into the chart. And we'll just go ahead and dive in. Okay. You guys, there's so much shit happening today in like the world. I had to stop paying attention. So I know so many things are going on right now. It's crazy. And we are really building up to that Pluto return here at the end of the month. It's going to be one for the record books. We're on the edge of some crazy shit. All right. Where do we want to start here? Today is the 2nd. I think we're just going to go to tomorrow. The stuff that happened on the 1st I'm not saying it's not important. We had Mercury square Neptune retrograde yesterday, exactly square Neptune retrograde right before, actually it is pretty important. Let's go back there. Okay, so Mercury here at 22 degrees, very close to the galactic center, already starting to align our mind because Mercury is the planet that governs our mind. He's also legitimately the messenger of the gods. He is the planet that relays information from the celestial realm to our minds. And right now he's in conjunction and about to transit over the galactic center. It's exact on the 4th, so in 2 days. So he's already starting to align with that galactic mind, right? Really channeling this energy into whatever house Sagittarius falls for you. Now would be a really great time to pull your natal chart and look and see what house does Sagittarius fall in your chart. This is the area that is going to be of focus throughout Sagittarius season. You'd also want to probably look and see where Gemini falls in your chart. We are starting new chapters here in the realm of Sagittarius. And we're having a huge culmination and illumination in the area of your life that Gemini rules. New things starting here, peak of something that was initiated 6 months ago is coming to a culmination. We'll also be asked to release from this area as well. later on after the full moon. So look and see, what house does Sag fall in? What house does Gemini fall in? Both of these are going to be of focus. You also want to look and see where Capricorn is. Once the sun moves into Capricorn, that area will then be of focus. But for the majority of December, it's going to be Sagittarius. So on the 1st, Mercury, which is, like I said, coming up into alignment with the galactic center, so plugged into this expansive galactic mind that is like pushing beyond this reality, came into a square with Neptune retrograde and the moon at the same time. Jupiter is also in that same square, but it was exact with Neptune. All in Pisces right before Neptune stations direct. He will be stationing direct tomorrow. And Venus will be coming into that exact square then as well. So squares are often looked at negatively in astrology, which is something I kind of have an issue with. Even like their red lines, I bet you there's a way to kind of change the line color in some softwares, but they're looked at as harsh aspects. They're looked at as negative aspects, and they're really not. They are one of these 90-degree aspects that trigger things into being. There's some sort of conflict or struggle that is seeking balance, and an action will have to be taken in order to come into said balance. So they're very triggering. They trigger things within our, look and see where Pisces is, to see where that trigger is coming from, what house Pisces falls in your chart, okay? There are these sort of conflicting triggers that come to force us into action in order to come more so into harmony, right? And so on the 1st, Mercury, which is plugged into the galactic center, came into a square with Neptune retrograde, okay? So Neptune is retrograde in its home sign of Pisces. Yesterday was right there with the moon as well, really channeling that energy through our subconscious, in the realm of the collective unconscious, and it was also aligning with Jupiter, which is another ruler of Pisces. So this deep Piscean energy of mysticism, this connection to the unseen, this realm of art and symbolism. I think that's my cat. I might have to let the cats in if they keep crying at the door. Came to trigger our mind, right? So Neptune governs illusions and confusions. He governs the fog of this sort of mist that we travel through within the realm of our unconscious mind, this sort of illusionary energy. But when he's retrograde, we are able to pierce through the illusions. This is this sort of energy of piercing through the fog in order to see, in order to access clarity. Now, Neptune is about to station direct tomorrow, so the spell, the illusion, the confusion in the fog is going to roll back in. But if you had any sort of like deeply esoteric or mystical insights come through yesterday, like, trust those. Trust those, write them down. That was something that we can kind of hold our hat on. It's very piercing into the realm of truth, which is what Sagittarius is having us attempt to navigate towards. Now, Neptune and Pisces and all of these planets here in Pisces can also very much govern like escapism and dissociation, nostalgia, all of these different realms that help us to kind of push beyond this physical realm into a realm of something more etheric, right? Something more intangible. When we dissociate, we leave our body, which is often what Pisces and Sagittarius and these very philosophical and spiritual signs resonate, that the energy, the archetype that they resonate with sometimes. So what I'm getting at here is that, yeah, it's definitely my cat at the door. Hold on. Are you guys for real? What, bud? Okay, but where's your sister? All right, well, you have to go. You have to be good. Okay, sorry. He was like attacking the bottom of the door. You can't climb on the thing either. I'm going to have to text your dad and he's going to have to come watch you because I don't think this is going to work. Okay. Yeah, I know. So clarity was coming through yesterday, but tomorrow, once Neptune stations direct, the fog is going to start to kind of roll in again. So if things were coming through clear over the past couple of days, follow that trail, because that trail of insight is going to help to guide you through the wonderland that we are like navigating back into, right? Okay. Let me text Eddie to come get this cat because there's no way this is going to work. I'm sorry, guys. Usually they're good, but sometimes they're not. He's in the garage. Okay. Xander, you're going to go out there with your dad. Come on. I know, I love you too, buddy, but you're going to go. You got to go. Say bye to the internet. Say bye. Say bye. Okay. Okay, go play through it. Oh, there's your sister. All right, go on. I'm sorry, you can't come in here. All right, Eddie will come watch that. What am I doing? The third. This is like a little bit of a hot mess, you guys, but you know, all my best work usually is, so we'll just roll with it. We come back to... Okay, so tomorrow's the third. Neptune's going to station direct. When a planet stations direct, their energy, their archetype is more heightened than when it's direct or when it's retrograde. We feel it most strongly when it's stationary, when it's stationing direct and it's like not moving at all. I don't know why, we just do. And when Neptune stations, or when Neptune is like strongly aspected, we have this influx, especially it's at home in Pisces, like we're going to feel it even more so than if it was in any other sign. We have this influx of creativity, of like unconscious impulses, of spirituality and imagination, this connection to the realm of the mystical. Now, Neptune also governs confusion, illusion, fears. And so when these transits are activated, sometimes the world stage, the powers that want to be, tend to try to capitalize on those to siphon our energy through those means, through fear and confusion and illusion, right? Not only do we have Neptune stationing retrograde this month, which is going to bring that influx back when we have been shattering illusions. The past 6 months, Neptune stationed retrograde back in June 28th. So since June, we have been shattering illusions. And now, from now until about 6 months, another 6 months, like we're going to be more so in the realm of illusion. So not only do we have Neptune stationing direct, but we have Mercury stationing retrograde later this month in Capricorn, the sign that literally governs the hierarchies, the world governments. Mercury, the messenger, the information. When it's retrograde, what is coming through is not the truth, it's skewed. And so we have a lot of miscommunication come through this month from this system we live in, you know, that's controlled by the planetary archons and these constellations and these houses and these signs, this little matrix we live in. So we have a lot of confusion coming from this, while simultaneously our sun, our consciousness is going to be transiting these vast galactic points that is going to be connecting us into that sort of universal truth, that sort of singularity with source that sits beyond whatever sort of bullshit this several months going forward are going to bestow upon humanity. So while it may feel like there's a lot of miscommunication in the matrix or whatever this is, I don't want to use the word simulation, but whatever this whole thing is, that this is the coding for, it's going to be confusing. And we're going to have to trust the sort of insights that have been coming through the past 6 months while Neptune was retrograde and cutting through. And then this month, we're also going to have to kind of trust this energy of the unknown that our personal planets will be aligning with, i.e. the Galactic Center and the Great Attractor. Okay, so Neptune will station direct tomorrow. Like, I would not be surprised we already have so many huge world events happening just even today. But I wouldn't be surprised if they tie something really big tomorrow. Neptune stationing direct is prime spellcasting material in order to create a sort of illusion. This will be happening square Mercury, the message. So in order to confuse the message, it would be ideal for them to use. Also, just keep that in mind when communicating with people in your immediate environment, is that things will be foggy, but so magical and mystical and compassionate. Our psychic senses will be heightened. So trust your gut during this time, because Neptune governs that sort of connection to the psychic realm. So as Neptune stations direct tomorrow in a square to Mercury, the mind, the message, it's confusing, but also our psychic senses are plugged in to that sort of esoteric truth simultaneously. Venus will be squaring Neptune on that day. So Mercury will be conjunct Venus, the planet of relationships, of values, of our interactions with other people. Here in Sagittarius, on mundane terms, this can be relationships and communication between long distances. So other countries, right? Communicating back and forth. We've seen that happen today with freaking weird Biden and Macron doing that super weird handshake for 42 seconds, but we'll get into that in the rabbit hole. That's a whole nother thing. Okay, so Venus will be squaring Neptune at this time too. So keep this in mind. The planet of relationships, the planet of communication, is in a square to confusion, right? We're also about to head into Mercury retrograde at the end of the month. And so just be mindful when it comes to your communications with those that you love, particularly around beliefs, Sagittarius, the spiritual dimension, our sort of dogmatic beliefs of what is true, because it's different for everybody always, and people are really going to be plugged into their own specific truth at this time. Now, while simultaneously we have this sort of square, which isn't always necessarily bad, it's forcing us to take some action. Our sun is coming into a trine with Chiron retrograde. What is Chiron? Which also stations direct this month on the 23rd. So this is the tail end of both of these transits, right? Both of these retrogrades. Neptune has been shattering illusions, particularly illusions around the spiritual realm, confusion in the realm of the unconscious, digging things up in order for us to see. Also influx of mysticism and spirituality and imagination that's found deep within the self. Chiron has been retrograde in Aries which literally governs the self. It governs our identity. It governs our persona. It governs us, ourselves. And Chiron has been retrograde since, I wrote it down, July. So also since the summer, just like Neptune. And he, just while Neptune was diving into the unconscious in order to cut through the fog for us to see what's in there, cut through the illusions, Chiron was digging deep into the recesses of our persona in order to alchemize the core wounds that reside around our identity, around being able to show up as who we are and that pioneer we came here to be. Aries very much governs our development of ourselves and this sort of path to know thyself, this individuation process. And as Chiron transits through Aries, he'll be here for so long. He transited in 2018. And I don't know how long he'll be here. Another couple of years. I don't have the date written down. I think it's 2026. I think. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, Chiron's been here since 2018. And he has been working through these core wounds of the self. And while he's retrograde, he's able to really go inward and find them when he stations direct. So when Chiron is the wounded healer, right? When he is retrograde, he's going inward to like find the wounds, work through the wounds, address the wounds, feel the wounds, you know what I mean? Process the wounds. And then when he's direct, he's working to heal those wounds and unlock the wisdom that they hold. Wounded healer. That's when he starts to unlock the esoteric wisdom or the that sort of elixir that we are meant to create from this poison that we can then help others to access as well, right? So while simultaneously we're having these sort of like triggers that reside around beliefs or ideals or communication within relationships, sort of like confusion, this deep spiritual dimension that has a lot to do with compassion and spiritual love and empathy and this connection to this deep spiritual dimension that is triggering us at this time, right? So Sagittarius governs the quest for truth, right? Oftentimes this quest for truth for Sag is found in dogmatic places, right? It governs higher academia. It governs the realm of philosophy. It governs the realm of religion. It governs these sort of avenues that are Hierophant type gatekeepers for what these other teachers or gurus or guides that Sag also governs dictate to us as truth. We're ultimately meant to push past that, push all the way past all of these dogmatic beliefs as we transit through Sagittarius. And when we get to the end, we move beyond them and we push into that source of singularity with the galactic center, right? And during Sag season, any planets that are in Pisces will square any planets in Sagittarius. They are both mutable signs. And they sit in a square to each other. They both govern the spiritual dimension. While Sag governs way more of that dogmatic realm, Pisces governs the merging with the whole. And it loses the sort of discernment that Sagittarius has because it merges with all of it. It merges with the truth, the lie, the in-between, the confusion, the illusion, the mystic truths. It merges with it all. And it is a boundaryless realm that is connected to everything. And with all of these planets here, you can very much get lost in that realm and not be able to quite access it. Sagittarius is too focused around what is truth, and so it falls into dogma. And Pisces is often too boundaryless and focused on that everything is truth, and so it can't differentiate between what is actually illusion and what is actually truth. And so these triggers force us to find a middle ground between the two. That's what squares do. There's conflicting desires, struggles that are forcing us into action to find a balance between. Okay? And simultaneously, the sun will be trining Chiron. And so we are healing our core identity during this time as well, before Chiron stations direct. And so this is kind of that like last. I always look at when planets aspect a planet that's retrograde and about to station retrograde or about to station direct. I look at it as like one of those like baton relays, right? Chiron has been in Aries, the sign of the self, really addressing a lot of those core runes around our identity since July. It actually stationed retrograde right around when CERN was kicking off. And it's about to station direct. It will station direct on the 23rd, so later in the month. But this is the last aspect our sun is going to make, our consciousness is going to make to Chiron before it stations direct. So this is when it funnels through all of the information that it has been doing into our conscious mind. It's like, okay, yo, I'm Chiron, the wounded healer. I've been in this realm of your psyche, this sort of forefront of your psyche. Aries has a lot to do with the ego as well. It has a lot to do with anger and aggression and these sort of lower chakra energies of like fight or flight, and the identities and the personas that we have taken on that we need to work through in order to really embody the totality of what we are. It has a lot to do with the masks that we wear. And it's been doing a lot of work digging in to process that. And now it's going to trine the sun in a very harmonious, free-flowing aspect. And it is going to relay the information to it so that the sun can then finish trekking through its hero's journey of Sagittarius on its way to that sort of Axis Mundi, that sort of middle pillar, that singularity with the divine, or with this new level of who we are, right? This new concept of who we are. We're constantly shedding these layers of identity, right? And Chiron has been doing some deep shedding on the parts of our identity that we took on because of our past traumas and wounding, right? But it's doing that with a purpose to alchemize those into the wisdom that they held, because everything has a purpose, right? Okay. You guys, this is kind of driving me crazy for a second. I need to get rid of the midheaven and the ascendant because it's just driving me nuts. Okay. Those are time sensitive points. Like, I'm not going to explain it to you. I'm just going to get rid of it and move on. Okay. Okay, so what's interesting is that on the 3rd, the same time that Venus, the planet of relationships, Mercury, the planet of communication, is coming into that square with Neptune, that sort of illusion, but spiritual love and creativity and compassion and deep emotional connection. So triggers are coming through that realm. Chiron is working harmoniously with our sun in this very free-flowing, healing trine. We also have the moon transiting over the Andromeda galaxy, which speaks a lot to union and alchemy as well. Those of you who are Patreon members, you understand this. I'm not going to get super deep into it now, but in short, the mythology of Andromeda and the astronomy of the Andromeda galaxy and the Milky Way galaxy shooting towards each other in space, and they're going to collide and create a super galaxy in like 4.5 billion years. They represent this sort of path of alchemy and divine union, which is very much at focus during this time. We can see how our interpersonal relationships are in play. Okay, so on the 4th, Yes, my mouth is so dry. Give me a second. On the 4th, later in the day, I don't know when, but let's do PM just to make it in the middle. Later than that, I have it written here. 4:33. On the 4th at 4:33 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Mercury will be the first of these personal planets here. The Sun, Venus, Mercury, Mars is another one of the personal planets, but he's in opposition. Will make its transit over the galactic center. Okay, so this is something we've been feeling. All right, this analytical mind, our logical, analytical human mind that Mercury represents, will be in alignment with our galactic mind, right? On the 4th, starting this sort of galactic center conjunctions that we're going to be feeling throughout the whole month. The last one we feel is the new moon on the 23rd. That's still in conjunction with the galactic center. So really we're feeling it throughout past the winter solstice, and this is when it really starts to kick off being exact. Like I said, we're feeling it all month. We were already feeling it the days leading up to this, but this is when it will be exact for Mercury. So Mercury is the messenger of the gods. He is responsible for relaying information from the celestial realm to our minds, which he governs. He governs the relaying of the communicating of information, and also the information, and also our mind. He governs all three of those things. So the 4th would be an ideal time, even more so than when the sun makes its alignment on the 18th. Maybe that'll be when the message comes through. But on the 4th, when Mercury makes that alignment, I would look at this day. Okay, this is what I plan on doing for myself. I would look at this day as a day to kind of initiate communication with the celestial realm, and try to manifest intentionally the acquisition of any sort of messages that you would like answered, right? So when Mercury comes into alignment with the center of our galaxy on the 4th, ideally around 4:33 p.m., but it doesn't really matter if it's the exact time, you could perhaps write a letter or a list of questions or a list of areas of your life that you would like insight on, or messages to come through about, clarity to come through about. Neptune will be stationing at this time in a square. So like I said, it will be, the message that will come through will be skewed with Neptunian influence. So it will come through symbolically. It will come through esoterically. It will come through archetypally. It will come through art and music and avenues of creativity. It will come through your psychic senses, and it will come through triggers that are conflicting in some way and that force you to take action in some way, right? So you cannot take them literally. You need to understand this when you're setting your intentions or you're asking your questions, is that it will come through in a symbolic fashion that is very much up for interpretation. And so the more you can fine tune what it is that you're looking for insight into, the more that can come to light. Also, gearing it towards the area of your chart that is highlighted right now. So looking for insight into whatever house Sag governs for you. For me, it's my 4th house. So things around my subconscious mind, my traumas, my mother, my early life programming, my home life, things like that. Also Pisces, because the square is coming from Neptune and Pisces. Pisces for me is my 7th house. And so things around relationships and whatnot. And then also I would bring in the house that Gemini governs. For me, this is my 10th house, my house of career and purpose and mission, because this is the areas that is going to be of focus over the next month. We'll have an illumination in Gemini. We're having Mercury and all of these planets align with the galactic center over here. And we have these stationing energies, plus Neptune's going to transit over, Jupiter will transit into Aries later this month. Okay. That would be an ideal time to set intentions around the messages and the clarification that you would like to come through, but you have to understand that they will not come through literally or clearly, but very, very, very symbolically, esoterically, rooted in that psychic feeling as opposed to literal knowing. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, where am I at? The 4th. And the moon will be transiting over Andromeda during that time. And so, my dog is snoring. And so, insight into the realm of relationships. The moon, which governs our first connection to the psychic realm, our sort of intuition, will be transiting over Andromeda during that time. And so it does have a lot to do with divine partnership. We have a whole video on Patreon all about that. Okay. So on the 5th, we will be meeting for our full moon live stream. The full moon is not until the 7th, but we're going to meet on the 5th. We are going to be diving into the galactic realm, the great attractor. We're also going to be talking about Gemini. I mean, obviously Gemini because it's in Gemini, but also Orion because it falls in Orion. So, like I said, you can join Patreon. It's linked down below. You can pay whatever you want, and you'll have access to that video. On the 5th, the sun will conjunct the great attractor. Okay, so it'll be later in the day. It's at 8:55 p.m., around 9 p.m. The sun will conjunct the great attractor. Like I said, Venus and Mercury already did last month. I just forgot to tell you. I didn't even know myself. I didn't even know until I did we didn't do a calendar last month. That's why I didn't know. See, that's why I make this OCD calendar, because if I don't make the calendar, I don't find all the things. Okay. You can also just chalk it up to my Virgo placements. Okay, so the sun will align with the great attractor on the 5th. So Mercury will still be in alignment with our galactic center, which happened exact the day before. And the sun will be aligned with our great attractor. So our two planets that govern our mind and our consciousness, that which we can see and know and understand, will both be aligned with center points of our galactic mind. Mercury will be aligned with the galactic center, the center of the Milky Way galaxy, and the sun will be aligned with the great attractor, which is the center of our huge, huge, huge cosmic mind, even bigger than our supercluster. I forget what it's called. It's not called a supercluster. Amanda, are you still here? Can you look up the name of the body that is the great attractor is the center of? It's like Lachesis super cluster or something like that. I don't know why I can't remember this right now, and I don't have it written down anywhere, but it's huge. It's massive, and we're going to dive all into it on the 5th for the video. I also linked down below an old video that I did on the subject last year where we touched on it somewhat. I think it was like the December video last year. It's in the description down below. Okay, so not only will Mercury be conjunct the galactic center, the sun will be conjunct the great attractor. Mercury will be exactly opposite the pole star at that time, so highlighting the other half of that Axis Mundi that I talked about before, while squaring Jupiter. Okay, so Mercury, the sun, and Jupiter are the three planets most closely connected to our consciousness. Okay, The sun governs our more like egoic consciousness. It has a lot to do with our ego, our willpower, our identity. And Mercury has a lot to do with our thinking process, our rational mind, our analytical mind, the relaying of information. Both of these will be aligned with these galactic points, and Mercury will be square Jupiter. So while Mercury governs our like analytical mind, our rational mind, these thinking processes, these forms of communication, Jupiter governs our higher mind, our philosophical mind, our expansive mind. And all of these will be aspecting each other during this time. It's going to be a very mentally heightened period of time that's not just mental within our muggle mind, but within our like cosmic galactic mind. But Neptune is still in play. So like I said, this mind that is often overly rational is getting triggers coming through this deeply symbolic realm. So like you cannot take them literally. This makes me think of the Sphinx, which the asteroid Sphinx is right here. And that's actually, the asteroid Sphinx is in opposition to our super galactic center, so our other galactic point. And it makes me think of the Sphinx, right? So the Sphinx is this figure. I mean, there's so many different Sphinx, but I'm particularly going to focus on the Greek Sphinx, which we see presented the way I want to talk about it right now in the Orpheus myth. When Orpheus goes to the underworld to save his wife, he does kind of fail that part of the quest, but he succeeds in passing through the Sphinx initiation. And the Sphinx represents this riddle, this puzzle, this unknown, this sort of paradox, right? And it shows us how in order to get the message, we have to think outside of the box. We cannot think literally. If we think literally, we'll never get there. And I always like to kind of just mention the riddle, like break down the riddle. And it proves my point so perfectly. So when Orpheus goes down into the underworld, he is presented by the Sphinx and he's asked a riddle. And this is the riddle. What walks on four legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 legs in the evening? And the answer is a human. In the morning, when it is a baby, it crawls on 4 legs. In the afternoon, when it is an adult, it walks on 2. And in the evening, when it's old, it walks with 3 because it has a cane. And so you can see how you have to think outside the box and you can't take it too literally. The energy of Pisces with all of these planets here speaks to that. We're in the realm of the riddle. We're in the realm of wonderland, of the illusion, where like you can navigate this to mystic truths, but the vast amount of it is the realm of nonsense. You know what I mean? Okay, so the 5th, the 4th, the 3rd, we're really feeling this sort of energy of plugging into the galactic mind. Mercury is aligned with both sides of the Axis Mundi. The sun is conjunct the great attractor, and Mercury is square Jupiter. If we begin to set intentions on the 4th around the sort of message we would like to come through the center of our galaxy, which has pierced the fabric of the space-time continuum. You know, I go so deep into it in the video down below on the astrology of black holes. Black holes literally rip the space-time continuum. They pierce through and they become creators themselves. They become God. They destroy matter. They pull it into singularity, into their center, and then they shoot matter and light and electromagnetic energy out into space that is then responsible for creating new stars and new planets and new black holes. It's literally when a sun moves beyond this polarized force of light and becomes unified with the cosmic womb itself. Black holes are very chaotic in their manifestation, but it's chaos with a purpose. It's chaos that breaks us free from boundaries and limitations and things that no longer serve us, and pushes us towards this path of oneness, sometimes in very violent ways. So keep that in mind, as we transit over these black holes. It's intense. As somebody who has a planet, including my sun is aligned with the supergalactic center, my moon is aligned with the galactic center, my Saturn and my Uranus. My Saturn is aligned with the Great Attractor, and my Jupiter is aligned with the Andromeda galaxy. I have all of them. My fucking life has been one giant shit show of just chaos. And it didn't seem like it had a purpose. But now, in hindsight, now that I feel like I've made it past this event horizon of destruction, and I'm now traveling through this void of the unknown on my path towards singularity, and I look back on this trail of destruction in my wake, it makes a lot of sense. What I'm getting at here is that this month is going to feel like this. We're going to be very strongly plugged into this energy of creation, but simultaneously destruction. Especially those of us here in the north, we're in this half of the year that is the half of death and destruction and the fall, preparing us for the rebirth that will happen in the spring. Okay. Anything else I want to say about that? The Great Attractor is very gravitationally strong, and so the sun aligning with it on the 5th, we could perhaps feel our consciousness being strongly pulled in a specific direction, being as though we're in Sag, and being as though you're here at, what fucking time is it? 10:30 at night, and probably later where you are, listening to me ramble about this weird sort of shit. This place that your mind is pulled will probably be deeply philosophical and exploratory in nature because of the Sagittarius influence. Sag also governs education and higher learning, as does Mercury. And so if you are being called to learn something, absorb information, if you feel like you're being literally have this gravitational pull towards a certain direction, fucking trust that and go with it. Because during this time, our planets that govern our mind and our mental processes are so aligned with the strongest gravitational sources in our universe. And so if you feel like you're being pulled in a certain direction, go with it. Don't fight against it. I'm just trying to see if I want to move on. Okay. Since it's already 10:30, I guess we may as well. Lord. These videos are always so long. I don't know how to not say a bunch of things, you guys. I don't know, man. I have no idea. Okay, so on the 6th, Mercury enters Capricorn. And so things shift. This sort of deeply expansive, exploratory energy, which we'll still be feeling through the sun, but our mind, our communication, our relay of information will be moving into Capricorn. And so the energy of Capricorn versus the energy of Sagittarius is a lot more grounded and practical and, focused on the work that needs to be done and whatnot. Now, once Mercury enters into Capricorn, it's going to start to enter into its shadow period. Okay, hold on. Mercury stations direct at what degree? Hold on. 8. Okay. So once Mercury moves into Capricorn, and it gets to about like 8 degrees, it will be in its shadow period. So it's going to transit over this area of Capricorn 3 times. So we'll already start to be feeling this sort of mercurial energy going in to reassess and do some sort of work. You know, Capricorn literally governs the realm of work, hard work, discipline, efficiency, responsibility, things like that. Oh, Nicole says it's only 8:30 in Hawaii. Well, whoop, whoop. R. Hawkins says, I feel the pull to study higher knowledge. I trust this energy. Yeah, definitely trust it around this time, because that's literally the planets that help us to bring knowledge into our mind are in the realm of higher knowledge and aligned with our points of galactic consciousness. Like, if there's ever a fucking time, now is the time to do it. Sag also governs the reading and writing of books. So, like, I'm just throwing this out here for myself. Please start compiling your damn book, Allie. Oh my gosh. I'm doing it. I promise I'm doing it. Okay. Don't mind me. I'm just talking to myself. Okay. So on the 6th, Mercury enters Capricorn. And so it will start to ground this energy much more into the physical. We have been so out there, very hard to bring it in and do anything with it. So once Mercury enters into Capricorn, we can start to do things with what it is that we found out there in the nether reaches. But we won't really fully understand what it is that we're doing or the message that came through until Mercury stations direct. Sorry, I know that was really loud. Which is the 18th of January. But then it will still need to move all the way over its shadow. So it will be like well into the end of January that the message really comes in clear. Catherine says it's 6:30 a.m. in the UK. Oh, I love hearing where you guys are. If you guys are in the chat, right down below where you guys are at. I think it's so cool how my clients are just like literally all over the world and how we can connect here on the interwebs. Oh, so rad. You guys know how I feel about technology. I kind of hate it, but I kind of like it because of things like this. Okay, so the information that we are plugging into that's coming through symbolically and esoterically and through art and music and all of these weird intangible avenues, these weird triggers of like nostalgia and creativity, we will then be integrating in a physical way as Mercury transits through Capricorn and does its sort of retrograde, which, like I said, its retrograde starts at the end of the month, so on the 29th. So for the first beginning of the month, as it transits direct, we'll be doing a lot of the practical work in order to bring into the physical realm what it is we found in the etheric realm. But whatever work we do, we're going to have to redo and then redo again in order to get the message clear. So leaning into that reassessing of information, leading into wherever it is your mind is being drawn, a lot is really wanting to come through us right now, especially those of us who are plugged into the spiritual dimension. And like that's everybody here listening to me talk. Sarah says she's in Alberta, Canada, and Creative Mystic says she's in the Inland Empire. Oh, you're close to me. I'm over in LA. I just say LA so you guys know, but I'm actually over in like Lawndale. It's more by Manhattan Beach. Okay, let's move on. So on the 7th, we have our Gemini new moon. It's exact at 8:08 p.m. So let's just put that in for my own sanity. The sun will be at 16 degrees of Sagittarius, 2 degrees away from the Great Attractor, which is at 14 degrees of Sagittarius, in opposition to the moon at 16 degrees of Gemini in the constellation of Orion, something we will be talking about when we discuss this moon on Monday. And it will be exactly conjunct Mars as it occults it, as it eclipses it. And what were the other aspects that is being made to this moon? Hold on. I guess that's the only one of significance. We'll talk about the more esoteric, the asteroids, influences, and whatnot when we talk about this moon. But at this time, we are going to be having a huge illumination, aha moment, clarity coming through whatever house Gemini governs for you. It will be conjunct Mars, which is retrograde, which has been forcing us to refocus our energy, reassess our motivation, and take proper action in alignment with this house. For me, this is my 10th house of purpose and career. And I know that I'm supposed to start compiling this book. I've been saying it forever. I know you guys have heard me say it like a million fucking times. I'm going to do it. This is when I'm going to do it. And it's because this illumination is in my house of purpose and career and public standing and how you're seen in the public. And it's conjunct Mars, where I have been really trying to reassess where my energy has been going in order to redirect it into where it needs to go, in order to help me strive towards this personal mountain that I am climbing. Your 10th house is the top of your mountain, right? For you guys, it's going to be, unless you are a Virgo rising like me, it will be a different area of your life that we're having this illumination, this culmination. This is things that were seeded 6 months ago, which ironically, when I was writing my intentions for this past new moon in Sag, I looked back. I'm looking for my notebook. I don't remember where I put it. I don't know. But I looked back, and 6 months ago, I set intentions at the new moon in Gemini and I don't even remember doing this. I have no conscious recollection of writing these words. But 6 months ago, when I set intentions for the moon that this Gemini moon will be the culmination of, I said something along the lines of 6 months from now, I'll have everything I need in order to start compiling my book and blah, 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 a whole bunch of other stuff. And well, now we're there, and I'm finally going to be taking that sort of action. So for you, that sort of action after a sort of recessing period will be happening in another area of your life. If you know where Gemini falls in your chart, feel free to write it in the chat. But this is where we're going to be experiencing this illumination. And it will have a lot to do with the reassessing of our motivation, of our action, of our drive, of where it is that we are asserting ourselves. And it will be in alignment with the Great Attractor. And so we are being guided by forces that sit beyond this earthly plane, sit beyond our galactic plane, and is the center point of our vast cosmic consciousness. And that this is the strongest gravitational force in our entire immediate universe that we currently know of. And so where we're being pulled during this time, the illuminations that we're being shown are being guided by this sort of 0 point energy that even some Muggle astronomers literally think is God. They think it's everything merging back with 0 point. I think everything is God or source. So I think it's a little silly to say that right there is God, but it's definitely this merging with that oneness, right? Okay, so Indigo is a Gemini rising. So this is really happening in your realm of self and identity. Okay, so the Gemini new moon opposite the Great Attractor. It's also part of this Mars eclipse, right? So Mars will be occulted by the moon. This is happening in the realm of Gemini, which governs the realm of duality, right? It governs light and dark, us, them, yin, yang, every side of any sort of split. One is on one side and one is on the other side. And as the moon, our feminine polarity, is full, expressing itself in its totality, and it occults Mars, it has the upper ground in some way, which is, honestly kind of beautiful for a lot of the, to kind of combat a lot of the ritual work that I see the powers that be taking place in right now, which has a lot to do with the erasure of the feminine in favor of this polarized Mars force of like might is right, and this like aggressive drive forward into extreme masculine polarity. And so this is actually a really beautiful transit when it comes to us aligning with the feminine impulse simultaneously while they're doing ritual work to try to like stifle or erase that same impulse. So what I'm getting at here is that, and also Venus, which literally governs the divine feminine, will be conjunct the galactic center during that moon. So Venus will be conjunct the galactic center, our sun will be conjunct the great attractor, the moon will be right on top of Mars. And so we have Venus, that divine, she's not the best archetype to represent the divine feminine, but she's one of the best ones that we have in the traditional planetary spheres. She will be aligned with the galactic center. And so this feminine energy will be getting this huge push from our galactic core, and the moon will be occulting Mars in the same time that we're in this sort of Mars ritual. And so I addressed this a little bit in the rabbit hole video that I did that's linked down below. We are going to be expanding upon this a lot more in the second part of the rabbit hole video. I don't want to get too deep into it now because we'll be here forever. If you want to do some homework before that second part, so you actually like have full idea of what it is that I'm saying, I would go and watch Gigi Young's series. She has 2 different series that are both phenomenal, and I highly recommend. One of them is her In Plain Sight series that she has been doing for a couple of years. And this is where she dives into occult rituals that are done just like straight up in plain, similar to what I do. But she's way more grounded in her approach, and her editing skills are like on point and so beautiful. But she dives into being able to pinpoint this sort of rituals, esoteric and occult rituals that are done in plain sight by the powers that want to be, right? And then she also has this series that she's been doing, I think for the past 2 years, called the Mars Mysteries series, and where she's diving all into the occult and esoteric mystery school streams and their connection to this like Mars origin myth, the connection to the Nazis and Aldebaran, and our current space programs, and its connection to transhumanism and this like off-planet civilization that they plan on creating, the erasure of the feminine, all of the things that I was talking about in the rabbit hole video that I did last month. Highly recommend this series, Mars Mysteries. She has a whole playlist on her YouTube channel. Anyway, this current Artemis launch, as I dove into in the rabbit hole video down below, is a ritual focused much more on Mars than the moon, much more on the masculine polarity and almost on the erasure of the feminine. And that's cool and all, you know, that they're trying to do all that with their like spells and their rituals and their symbolism and whatnot. Well, I'm sorry to break it to you, and I know there's so many different Freemasons that follow me and lodges, and sometimes they like my posts, and I'm like, bro, are you lost? What are you doing here? But I know somebody somewhere has to see this video, and I'm sorry to break it to you. The cosmos have a different idea in mind. So while they may be trying to erase the feminine, project the masculine far out into the nether reaches of space through this sort of Martian impulse of colonization, of war, of aggression, of assertion, the cosmos here during this full moon, during this time, are supporting the feminine impulse. The galactic center is aligned with Venus. She is actually aligned with the Axis Mundi, both the galactic center and the pole star, and the moon is literally going to eclipse Mars. She's literally going to move over him, not just conjunct him like she does once a month. Literally once a month she comes and conjuncts Mars, once every month, but she is going to literally eclipse him 3 days before this, the return of the Artemis rocket. I guess the rocket already came back. I don't know if it's the shuttle, whatever. Something's going to land in California. It's ocean, hopefully the ocean. And that will be on the 11th. So this moon is really probably going to be a peak of not only whatever sort of weird ritualistic shenanigans they got going on, but for us here to align with that which is trying to be erased, right? And so we're definitely going to be getting a lot more impulses through the feminine polarity, which is very difficult to align with during transits in Gemini and Sagittarius, which are masculine signs. So Sagittarius is a fire sign and Gemini is an air sign, and they both are polarized into the masculine polarity. We have Mars here, which is retrograde, which also does kind of help with the feminine impulse taking the upper ground, but also the Mars retrograde just kind of also speaks to them trying to return to Mars, which is where they think humanity originated. And Gigi goes all into this in her series. Seriously, you guys, I do not recommend a lot of people work. And I do not agree with everything Gigi has to say. I actually not necessarily disagree, but I heard interpretations of things, and my interpretations of things are often a lot different. But of all of the people out there making content on these topics, her and the Dark Journalist are by far my favorites. And I don't really watch all her like live streams and stuff, but her edited together videos, I'm on top of that shit. It's fire. Sarah says, I've totally already watched all of Gigi's videos. So good. She loves mine too. Well, thank you. Okay. And so we have these masculine signs, right? But we have alignments with deeply feminine points. Not only is it a full moon occulting Mars, Venus aligned with the galactic center, the sun aligned with the great attractor, which is another very deeply feminine point that's merging with the cosmic womb. So the information coming through to us is coming through our subconscious mind, which speaks to this Neptune square. It's coming through the realm of the unseen, which is so fucking hard for Sag and Gemini to see. They can be very literal. They can be very literal and way too polarized into their mass. All my planets are here. I'm speaking from experience. Sometimes Sag can think they know the truth so much that they can never see the truth, right? And they have to embrace that realm of the unknown, which is what is speaking this month, right? And so the things that we see, the information in the forefront, that which everybody knows and sees, the information coming through, that is not the truth. That is not the truth. It is a version of the truth that is being presented to people, that is being presented to you, even what's coming through about your reality. It's those more unseen influences that we're supposed to kind of lean into to guide us during this time. Okay, where are we at here? Venus will be conjunct. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about this moon. I am super excited for this one. You guys, if you've been considering joining my Patreon, do it before the 5th because I think that's going to be a really good one. Okay, so the 7th, we talked about that moon. On the 8th, Venus comes into its exact opposition with the pole star, the same time that the moon transits the pole star. So we will have Venus conjunct the galactic center, the moon conjunct the pole star. Both Venus and the moon are astrology's 2 feminine planets. Saturn is too. I have a whole video about that. I'm not going to get into it now. It just is. It's available on Patreon. I guess Saturn is neutral. That's how it is in Vedic astrology. And in that video, I talk about how it's feminine, but then the next video, I come back around and I'm like, actually, it's neutral because it governs Capricorn, an earth sign, and Aquarius, an air sign. One is feminine, one is masculine, and I go all into it in this other video. But anyway, Venus and the moon are, in traditional astrology, the 2 feminine planets. We will have Venus aligned with the galactic center, and we will have the moon aligned with the pole star on the 8th. The same... it's at 10:54 p.m. So it's like late that this is exact. But this is really like an activation of the feminine half of the Axis Mundi, right? So this sort of ancient mythology that spans across cultures of this sort of world tree or this mystic mountain that we are climbing with. That's why this is the top of the chart, right? With the galactic center up at the top and the pole star down at the bottom. And we see this represented in a lot of ancient mythologies, often with a tree, with like the roots in heaven and the branches in heaven and the roots in hell are in this void space, this underworld space, and in this space of light, right? And these 2 polarities being pulled in 2 different directions, but often there's this middle earth or this Midgard place where, you know, us humans live because we are both of these things together and we are the alchemists meant to unite the 2, right? And whenever this point is activated, this Axis Mundi, please, you guys, seriously watch that video in my description down below. I have done a lot of videos in my several years doing videos. A lot of them I am very proud of. The Atlantis video that I did, several other videos, but the Axis Mundi video, that is probably my most favorite insight that I've ever discovered. I really do believe this is like one of the most important areas in the sky. Please watch that video so that you know what I'm saying when we watch all these other videos because I can't explain it every time, okay? So on the 8th, we will have both of our feminine polarities aligned with both of these points of extreme polarity, extreme darkness, extreme light. And it will be our feminine half that is guiding the way, right? And so again, it speaks to leaning into the unseen realm, which is the archetypes that I pulled, the cards I pulled. I pulled both the realm of the king, which is that realm of the light that we can see, and also I pulled the card for this realm of the unseen, which is ultimately what is navigating us throughout this time. So if you guys are like me and you can see all this fuckery going on and you know we're in the midst of a giant spell, I mean, maybe you think I'm insane and you're like, girl, not everything's a ritual. Well, I mean, literally everything is a ritual, whether we are conscious of it or not, whether they are conscious of it or not, literally everything is. But maybe you think I'm crazy. Maybe you don't. And maybe you're like, yo, yeah, we are in a fucking spell. The 8th and the 7th those would be the days to like cast protection, harness alignment with that divine feminine impulse that they are trying to erase, and like activate that strongly within yourself while we are in the realm of the God, right? We are in this fire sign, this air sign. The feminine is like, I'm here too, bitch. And this is where we can perhaps even do like counter work. I'm not real big on like casting spells back at these motherfuckers. You are welcome to do whatever you want. I don't really want that like quantum entanglement interference, but I'm real big on casting protection, breaking cords, breaking connection, funneling my energy back to me, and then creating like divine alignment with like truth and uninterfered connection with the two polarities, whether it be light or darkness, right? And at this time we can really, I don't want to say like reiterate, what do I want to say? Like, not, I can't find the word that I want. It was going to be like more big and fancier than what I'm going to go with right now. But during this time, we can solidify that works. We can solidify our connection to the divine feminine that is so much trying to be erased right now. Okay? The 7th, 8th, that's the time to do it. Venus will come into a square with Jupiter on the 9th, okay? And then it will move into Capricorn later that day. So this really starts to bring more of that grounded energy to this expansive, more intangible energy that we have been experiencing. Our relationships start to bring on a more like serious tone, a more grounded tone. We start to focus on being more efficient and responsible and grounded, right? This will be in a square to Jupiter. So Venus and Jupiter are astrology's two benefics. I was going to try to stop saying that word, because to imply two planets as benefics, then you have to look at the other planets as malefics and being like negative, and I don't believe that. But they say that both Venus and Jupiter are astrology's like two most beneficial planets. And when they get together, they bring benefit and growth and expansion and like good shit, right? Whenever they get together, whether it's through conjunction or square or opposition or trine, they're bringing beneficial aid and ease and whatnot. Now, this is a square. So this will bring tension. This will bring conflicting desires. And this will force us to take some sort of action in order to unlock the benefit that it holds, right? Capricorn has a lot to do with like work and responsibility, and the harsh initiations our soul came here to pass, these Saturnian initiations, this path of initiation. I have a whole video on Capricorn and the esoteric mythology of Capricorn, which is much like Scorpio. So some of you may know how Scorpio has this like evolution that transpires where it goes from the scorpion, like in that lower archetype, that like vindictive scorpionic energy that like stings and attacks. And then through all of this self-transformation that Scorpio governs, that scorpion then transmutes itself and, I don't know what word I'm looking for here. I like literally can't talk right now. Evolves, that's the word. I'm like the Pokemon. I'm like literally thinking about my kids. Pokemon. Okay, so the scorpion evolves into the eagle, where it can fly from a higher perspective, and it's like wiser and shit, right? But the eagle still needs to have a death and rebirth process, and through this death and rebirth process, integrating what it saw in the heights and what it learned down below, it transforms into the phoenix, this alchemical phoenix that is then connected to like the esoteric mysteries, right? That Scorpio also governs. Well, a lot of people don't know this, is that Capricorn has a similar vibe about it, where the goat, which is often seen as both a mountain goat up here at the top and a sea goat, and that is because this goat is meant to reach the highest point of the mountain during Capricorn season. We also have a full moon in its opposite sign of Cancer, which governs the ocean. And so we have a new moon during Capricorn season in Capricorn and a full moon in Cancer. And so this goat has to not only traverse the peak of this mystic mountain, but it also has to go into the depths of the abyss. And if it does both of these things, and it doesn't get lost in, the capitalistic Capricornian illusion of materialism, but it can then transform itself. This sea goat and mountain goat alchemizes itself into the unicorn, which is the esoteric archetype of Capricorn. And this is done here at the peak of the chart, at this area of the chart known as the Axis Mundi, where we pull together our two polarities. And this happens at the end of Sagittarius season, the beginning of Capricorn season, at the top of the chart, at the top of the mountain. And then from there, we travel what I call the back side of the mountain, which is the fall, which is where we really start to deconstruct in order to merge with the whole and then be reborn again anew in Aries season. If you guys have seen my Axis Mundi, comment in the chat. I want to know how many of you guys actually know what I'm talking about. Belinda says she is in Australia and she loves my content. There's so many of you guys. It's really cool. Okay, you just flip it around. Whatever I'm saying, it's like the opposite for you. You guys can flip it. Okay, where am I at? December 9th. Venus square Jupiter. So there's benefit coming, but it will require us to take action, right? And then Venus enters Capricorn, more grounded, practical relationships. And we're going to be more focused on our values and our relationships and the responsibility that we house in that realm. Looking to see Esoterica Owl, so she has, yay. Hi, Esoterica Owl. That's a very cool name. What was I saying? I legitimately have no idea. What was I saying? I don't know. We're going to move on. What was I saying? Venus will enter Capricorn. Who knows? I have no idea. We're going to move on. Okay. On the 11th. Oh, this is cool too. You guys, the divine feminine, that primordial goddess that demands equality and can never be erased because she birthed everything into existence, is showing up so much behind all of these days that are like key days tied to whatever fuckery there is going on right now. Okay, so not only do we have her all up on that new moon with Venus aligned with the galactic center, the moon aligned with the pole star, all of these great things, but the day that the Artemis mission returns and lands in our fucking ocean, the moon will be transiting over Black Moon Lilith. Abby says, hey, Allie, I've seen your Axis Mundi video. I don't remember the details of it, but I remember it was very informative. Yeah, it's super long. I think all my videos are, quote, very informative, sometimes too much so. Okay, so on the 11th, the Artemis mission will return. We will look at that chart when we go into the second part of the rabbit hole, which I think is going to be on the 27th. I want to wait till the end of the month because I have a feeling a bunch more stuff is going to happen. And on that day, the moon transits over Black Moon Lilith in Cancer, which literally governs the woman, the womb, the moon, the mother. And Black Moon Lilith represents the farthest, most repressed part of the woman, the womb, the mother, I don't know, one of those other words. It represents the rejected, repressed feminine, all right? So Lilith is, thank you, Abby. Lilith is, or was, Adam's first. So Lilith is a Jewish, Christian, mostly Jewish archetype for Adam's first wife, right? So before Eve, there was Lilith. And Lilith was equal to Adam on all levels. And she kind of like demanded that she be treated as such. I mean, really, she didn't ask for too much. Like, Adam must have been just such a dick, dude. She did not ask for much at all. All she wanted was to be on top sometimes, like just sometimes, when they have sex. And he was like, no, missionary all the way. And I don't know, I would have been out too. I would have been like, I'm out. I am out. So she's like, what? And then Adam complains to God and is like, this woman will not listen to me. And he's like, don't worry, we are going to shun her to the nether reaches of our psyche. We're going to pretend like she does not exist at all. And we'll make you a new wife. And we're going to make her from your rib. And she will be super subservient to you. And it will be all great. And that's how we got Eve, which represents this sort of illusionary feminine. She's not real. She's an illusion. Lilith represents the equality of the feminine. She represents being equal as opposed to being subservient. And Lilith represents the farthest, Black Moon Lilith represents the farthest point in the moon's orbit, the farthest point in that lunar consciousness. The moon will be transiting over it at the time that the Artemis mission comes back. Artemis is literally named after the goddess of the moon. And it will be in Cancer, which is the sign that governs the moon. And so while they are literally trying to erase us and this archetype in general, she's coming through fucking strong, which just tells me that it's like literally not possible. Like, it's not possible. Their whole like technological transhumanist narrative, like, okay, well, they could pull it off. Like, they can pull off what they want to pull off, which is create complete infertility so that babies are no longer born from the woman or the womb, but they are born through science and ultimately even an artificial womb in the future. They can merge us with machines and create these sort of Borg, cyborg, freaking transhumanist whatnot, you know? And that can exist for however long. It can exist for a while. You know, let's say they go and colonize Mars and then they get even extra technologically advanced and they go and colonize other planets. Eventually, they will destroy themselves because that's how things go. We've seen it play out in Rome when they got too big. We saw it play out in Atlantis. We're seeing it playing out now. Destruction will occur, and ultimately, when it does, everything will merge back with the goddess. She's always here, regardless of whatever sort of temporary, illusionary, masculine order decides to manifest. She is always there, and the transits of these divine feminine points during this time just reiterate the fact that, like, she's here regardless of however they want to erase her. But during this time, those of us who are working so hard to connect with this within, I know many of you guys are birth workers or reside in the spiritual dimension somewhere that's focused on these more feminine parts of our psyche. This is a time where we will be extremely heightened because we are kind of the the anchor points for this energy. We are the ones who are working to like anchor it in so that we do not lose it. And so those of us who have that sort of, have partaken in that mission or have like taken that mission on in some way will be heightened. Those senses of ours will be heightened over this month. Okay. Okay, so the Artemis thing, blah, blah, blah. On the 13th, we are going to meet and we are going to dive back into this book, The Sign of the Serpent. You guys, this book is fucking super cool. I've already read the whole thing. I love it. It's out of print. You can't get it for less than like $300. And reading through it, I can see why it's out of print because it has a lot of really good information in it. It's called The Sign of the Serpent, The Key to Creative Physics. We aren't very far in because I talked a lot in the last video because every single thing I read, I want to say something about. So I don't know how long we're going to be reading this book for. We're only on page 26. And that video is several hours long. But, you know, we chat, we read, we talk, we read, we smoke weed, we read. It's fun. If you want to catch up on part 1 of this book, it's linked down below. We'll be diving into part 2 on the 13th. Okay. On the 14th, we're halfway through the month, you guys. We're getting there. It's 11 o'clock. Okay. On the 14th, the sun will trine Neptune. And if the spell wasn't already in full swing, it's definitely coming through then. The sun will be at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. Sorry, my brain was thinking. So it will be at 23 degrees of Sagittarius, which is also in alignment with the third eye of Ophiuchus, which would be another video that I would really, really, really recommend watching. I've learned so much more about Ophiuchus since then. That was a video I did when I first started my Patreon, but there's a lot of really good information in there. And Ophiuchus is the governor of the Axis Mundi. So what we really have here is the constellation of Ophiuchus, which is the serpent bearer. He's standing there. He's like taming the serpent. And together with his foot on the galactic center, Ophiuchus's foot on the galactic center, after he has tamed the serpent is reaching up for the crown constellation, the Corona Borealis. And he is crowning them sovereign. And in doing so, he is unlocking this galactic consciousness. So Ophiuchus is the son of Apollo. Apollo represents one half of this duality. Artemis is the moon goddess, and Apollo is the sun god. And they are twins, like in Gemini. They represent one side of each of these poles, right? And Apollo, the sun god, in Greek mythology, is responsible for severing our connection to the earth goddess. So as the mythology goes, he killed Gaia, the earth goddess's serpent. He slayed her serpent, and then he pretty much stole all of her priestesses and her temple, and then he turned it into the Oracle of Delphi, and he made it his priestesses and his temple. And then from there, we really started to lose connection to the earth goddess cults, and the solar god cults started to manifest. Now, while Apollo represents this severing of the serpent, Ophiuchus, his son, represents the reintegration of said serpent. He's often seen as the physician or the healer with this staff with a serpent wrapped around it. And he has reintegrated this severed part of his psyche, and he has moved beyond lunar solar consciousness and has become galactic in origin, unlocking the top of this Axis Mundi, this galactic center, this singularity with the divine. So on the 14th, when the sun comes into a trine with Neptune, that illusion, that confusion, that psychic sensitivity, remember it also governs fears, this unseen realm. It also has a lot to do with like dissociation and nostalgia and music and art and creativity and imagination and all of these things, which is what we will be feeling. This trine is beautiful for tapping into your artistic senses. I'm actually going to write this down for myself. Hold on. I just wrote paint, exclamation point. If you are a creative person in any way and you have any sort of modality of creation that you jive with, I have like a million different hobbies, but I haven't painted in a long time. The 14th is a day to do it. We will be so creatively inspired and so deeply plugged into this unconscious mystical realm of symbolism and archetypal expressions that we can really bring a lot of that out into some sort of artistic modality. But it is not a day for like logical clarity to come through. Everything will be symbolic, subjective, archetypal, mystic, right? Definitely a day to be creative. If you have any sort of creative inspirations coming through on that day, any sort of ideas, write them down, because this is literally speaking from the source of creation itself, right? Now the sun will be aligned with the third eye of Ophiuchus at this time. So while we will be in the midst of some sort of confusion and spell and illusion, right, we have this sort of third eye that is activated and aligning with our galactic center. And so we can still find this center within, but that's where we're going to have to find it. Within. The collective unconscious is going to be a shit show, and a lot of influence is going to be coming to us from the collective unconscious. And so in order to kind of navigate that illusionary realm, we have to find that singularity within. We really have to work to activate that polar pillar, that Axis Mundi, that singularity with source, so that we can't be swayed away by the illusions that reside in that same realm as the mystic truths. Hopefully that makes sense. But seriously, if you are creative in any way, the 14th, that's the day to do it. Mercury will be squaring Chiron retrograde at that time. So not only is it a great day to create and process that unconscious realm, pulling it into this realm through means of creation, but the Mercury square to Chiron really helps us to obtain grounded, practical healing, right? Chiron is retrograde. He's about to station direct later on the 23rd, same day as the new moon. And so he's still very much retreating inward into our identity, into the self, right? And he's sitting in a square to Mercury, our mind, and the message and the communication that's coming through, which during this day is going to be deeply spiritual and mystical and unseen. And so we can really do a lot of grounded, practical healing if we can lean into this realm of the unconscious and bring something out of it through the means of creation. Hopefully that makes sense. Mercury will also be conjunct Pandora on that day. I guess I didn't write that on here. But Mercury the mind, the message, will be conjunct Pandora's box. Okay? So I love this for this transit. Because Pandora's box is one of those myths that is fucking so misunderstood. I love it. I love it so much. Okay. So Pandora is often looked at a lot like Eve. You know, she's blamed for the faults of man, right? Eve ate the apple, but she would have never needed to actually eat the apple to understand good and evil if Lilith was there to begin with. Because Lilith represents that other dynamic. Not that she's evil, but she represents the other side of a duality, right? So it would have been balanced to begin with, and Eve would have never needed to go into herself to find that lost aspect if Adam didn't reject Lilith to begin with. Lilith and Eve would have been the same person. They would have been cohesive. Anyway, Eve blamed for all the horrors of the world, much like Pandora, which is not true. So Pandora was a human being, and at the time that Pandora was handed that box and told not to open it, all of the horrors that Pandora supposedly let out of the box legitimately already existed. Like, people were getting raped left and right. There was murder and starvation and greed and like all of these things that she supposedly let out of the box already existed, many of which the gods themselves represent. So it's kind of just hilarious to me to blame this one girl for opening this box and letting all of these horrors out into the world that already existed. What she did do, however, was open this box and let these things out for us to see and address and work through. And when she opened the box and she let out all these things, like all these horrors, she freaked out and she was like, oh shit, and she closed the box. And when she closed the box, she trapped one thing in there, and what she trapped in there is hope. So hope was at the bottom of the box, and shoved on top of it were all of life's fucking horrors that she actually freed out into the world for us to see and address. They already existed, but now we can see them and work through them on our quest back towards the hope that we could never actually get to if she didn't open the box, right? So the only thing left in this box is hope itself. And on the 14th, when the sun is trining Neptune and so plugged into that realm of compassion and creativity and archetypal expression, and Mercury is squaring Chiron, really helping to heal and get that message through some sort of action, Mercury will also be conjunct Pandora, that box of hope, and also the things that we need to work through that Chiron ultimately represents. Those core wounds, those traumas, those pain, that sort of wounding that we need to work through on our path towards hope. And so looking to see what houses all of these things are in will help you to understand how this is activating your chart, right? Okay. On the 15th, the next day, Mercury, which is square Chiron, so working to take action to heal because of information coming through, on this quest towards hope while working through the things that were let out of the box. It will also be coming into a trine with the North Node. So Mercury will be working harmoniously with this path that we are trekking, this sort of area of our life. Look and see where Taurus is. We have been traveling, the eclipses have been traveling halfway through Taurus, and we've started to unlock a new chapter in this area of our life. We're starting to develop something new that we have never ever done before. Uranus is there, so it's a lot of has a lot of like the energy of like liberation and breaking free and awakening around that sort of new beginning. But looking to see where this what house Taurus falls in will really help you to kind of see how this is coming for you, because the message coming through and the healing that's being done has a purpose. It's so that we can do the hard work, take the responsibility, the initiative to embody this North Node mission that we all are trucking towards. Ironically, for me, this North Node is in my 9th house, which is that house of books. I'm supposed to write this fucking book, you guys. Oh my gosh. Having to like sit still and like do one big project is like very hard for me. Like these little bursts of projects are a lot more easier for my neurodivergent brain, and I keep putting it off, but I know like everything is yelling at me to do it. But for you, Taurus is going to be somewhere else in some other house, and that's where this new chapter is really unfolding for you. So the messages coming through have a purpose. They're in order for you to embody this like pathless path that you are now questing upon. Okay, and that was on the 15th. Mercury will then come into its exact trine with Uranus, which is conjunct that north node, on the 17th. So you're really feeling that like push into this path, and this harmonious energy helping you to see and embody that and move into that, from about like the 14th in through the 17th and even beyond. Okay. On the 18th, this is one of the big days of the month, you guys. Okay, this whole week from the 18th to like the 24th is a really big week for the month. Okay, so on the 18th, the sun will exactly conjunct the galactic center. It will be the last of the personal planets to do so, and it does so at 6:39 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so I would venture to guess, although with Neptune, I have no fucking clue, but I would venture to guess that when Mercury was conjunct the galactic center, the planet of the mind, the message, information, if you harness that intentionally and you were looking for insight into messages or information or clarity, that this may be one of the days when it starts to come through, because the sun is what we see, what we know, right? And the sun will be conjuncting that same point, helping it to come into our consciousness, what was initiated then by the messenger. Now remember, Neptune is squaring this point, so is Jupiter in Pisces. It will not come through literally. Like if you're like, show me a freaking red, I don't know. Some people like ask for like specific signs. I know people do this. Like, show me, I don't do this, but I know other people do this. Show me a like red flower if the answer to this question I'm seeking information to is yes. And show me a yellow flower if it's not. And then they'll look for these sort of synchronicities, right? That would not be the way to go about this, because that is very literal. The way to go about this is leaving it open, embracing the unknown, following these gravitational pulls, and embracing this sort of mystic dimension, right? That is very symbolic and can be read in multitude of ways, and very strongly rooted in like that more poetic, etheric realm, right? So I would, when Mercury is transiting the galactic center, I would more word it open-endedly, like, because this is gravitationally pulling us in certain ways, I would word it to guide me into such and such direction when it comes to whatever else. Help me to see, pull, like, ask for guidance, ask to be like led in a certain direction, and then follow that guide and embrace the like synchronistic mystery that will unfold before you over a very long course of time, right? So not only do we had Mercury conjunct the galactic center back on the 4th, which is where we could have really initiated a lot of these manifestations for the message to come through, right? Now, when the sun transits over it on the 18th, perhaps some of this can start to come through. But like I said, it is not going to make sense until the end of next month when Mercury finishes its retrograde in here, right? So this is when some of it can really kind of start to come through. So pay attention, but do not jump the fucking gun, which seriously, Sagittarius is the sign of jumping the gun. Sagittarius and Aries. But Sag, man, they go big or they go home. They will jump the gun. So you have to like reel yourself in, and you have to embrace this realm of mystery ultimately, because if you try to know, if you try to get that truth, if you try to like pinpoint what is real and true, which is what Sag fucking wants to do so bad, you're gonna miss the whole fucking message. You're gonna miss the message, because ultimately what we're trying to get insight into is stuff we can't ultimately really know. And so if you are looking for insight into something like fucking definitive and literal, this wouldn't be the transits to work through for that. This is more open-ended stuff that is about the spiritual dimension, stuff that is about this exploratory philosophical mind, pushing beyond, plugging into what sits beyond what we can see. Okay, hopefully that all makes sense. On the 19th, Venus then comes into a conjunction with Pandora, that box of the things we need to work through, and also the hope. And it comes into a square with Chiron, okay? So before, when a lot of these things may have been more personal, more about our mind and the message and information, Venus really comes in to bring in that interpersonal dynamic to the message as well, and the retrograde cycle. The same day that Venus squares Chiron, Mars sextiles Chiron. So Mars is the planet of action and drive and motivation. Right now it's reassessing where our action, drive, and motivation is being guided towards. And we're reconfiguring and recalculating that realm. But when it's sextiling Chiron, it really helps us to take some sort of appropriate action when it comes to that healing journey that we are on. Both of these are retrograde, so a lot of this action is internal, and it won't necessarily manifest on a outward plane. But because of the square here, a lot of the triggers can be coming from literally the world stage. So a lot of the action and healing will be happening internally, but the triggers will be coming from like world governments, the realm of capitalism, the hierarchies, this sort of greater world stage, and also our relationships and the realm of communication within our relationships. Okay. I'm excited about this transit, you guys, because it's going to be right on top of my North Node. Okay. So on the 20th, the day before our solstice, Jupiter enters Aries. It will also be like in a square to the solstice sun, like in an exact square to the solstice sun. Jupiter has been transiting all through Pisces. We have the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction when I said that it was this like influx of mysticism and magic that we had not felt since literally the 1800s. It's this activation of the mystic within us all. It also was a bigger spell than we have been a part of in our whole lives, being casted among our consciousness, which is what Neptune governs as well. A lot of confusion, a lot of delusion, and then Jupiter entered into Aries, and it was there for a little bit. It stationed retrograde. It moved back into Pisces. Then it stationed direct at like 28 degrees, transited this little bit of Pisces, and now it's moving into Aries where it is going to stay. When it moves into Aries, it will be conjuncting the asteroid Sphinx. So Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius and Pisces. And it governs that expansive philosophical mind, our higher self, our connection to that is beyond. Look at the arrow. It's shooting beyond, and it's striving to connect to that spiritual dimension that we ultimately find in Pisces. And Jupiter governs both realms. Neptune also is a ruler of Pisces. And so At the time that Jupiter enters Aries, it's going to be aligning with that Sphinx. It's going to be aligning with, hi, Valley. Oh my gosh, it's been a long time. How are you? Okay. When Jupiter enters into Aries, it will be conjunct the Sphinx. So that is that riddle, right? What walks on 4 legs, 2 legs, 3 legs, right? This sort of question that we can answer if we think outside the box and not literally, right? When Jupiter enters Aries, it is officially starting a new 12-year cycle of it transiting around the zodiac, all right? So while the sun, it takes 1 year to go all the way around the zodiac, the sun representing our egoic self, it spends 1 month in each sign. Jupiter, which represents our higher self, takes 12 years to go all the way around the zodiac, and it spends 1 year in each sign. And so now it is going to be in Aries, and it is going to be expanding whatever area of your chart Aries governs. So for me, it's going to transit into Aries right on top of my North Node. My North Node is literally at 0 degrees of Aries. Your North Node is like your fated, karmic, destined mission, right? And my North Node falls at the beginning of the zodiac. Like literally it falls at 0 degrees of Aries. The beginning of the tropical zodiac, which is one of the reasons why I focus so strongly on tropical, because I do believe I'm supposed to stay in the realm of tropical and integrate sidereal aspects, but that's a rabbit hole for another day. So Jupiter will enter into Aries, and it's going to be here for a year, and it's going to be transiting over whatever house Aries governs for you. What house is that? Write it in the chat if you guys know. If you're a Patreon member, you can look it up on the Apprentice cheat sheet. You can Google it or whatnot. But right now, as Jupiter transits through here, not only are we going to be embodying the mystery and the riddle that is our self and our identity, because it's in Aries, but it's also going to transit over Chiron, and it's really going to expand those wounds in order for us to see them. And then it's also going to bring so much benefit when it comes to unlocking the wisdom that they hold. It's actually going to be a really beautiful transit. Now for me, it's in my 8th house, which can go a multitude of ways, but you know, it's my realm of the occult and astrology, also self-transformation in the shadows, so I'm sure it should be interesting. But definitely look and see where that is for you, where, your North Node is in Taurus, so you're going through your nodal return. Whoop, whoop. My nodal return is the next eclipse season, once the nodes move into Aries and Libra, then I'll be going through my nodal return too. Okay. On the 20th, not only does Jupiter enter Aries, which is huge, and you know, we're going to be talking about that a lot more when we meet for the Capricorn new moon, which is exact on the 23rd, and it's conjunct the galactic center, but we're going to be meeting on the 19th to discuss it, and we'll be talking a lot about Jupiter entering Aries around that time. Definitely look and see what house is Aries. This is where you can expect a lot of expansion and growth, and just like optimistic drive over the next year. On the 20th, the sun will be still conjunct the galactic center in a square to Jupiter as it enters Aries. So it's very big, buoyant energy. And then it is going to be in exact opposition to the pole star on the 20th. So as you can see, this Axis Mundi, this opposition between the galactic center at 27 degrees of Sag and the pole star at 28 degrees of Gemini is activated like all month through so many different planets. It's really a time for us to find that middle pillar. Please watch that video. It's linked down below. And on that same day, the asteroid Psyche will exactly conjunct the South Node in Scorpio, okay? Yeah, I already talked about Neptune direct. That was back on the 3rd. Yeah, I talked about that already. Okay, so Psyche is an archetype we have covered extensively over on Patreon. So you guys are going to have full context of what I'm talking about. I have to sneeze and it's like stuck in my nose. I'm going to try to sum it up as best I can. The South Node represents our past. All of the sort of karmic buildup that we have built from this incarnation, and also our plug-in point to the past. All of the knowledge and wisdom and initiations we brought with us, and also all of the karma and habitual programming that we also bring with us. When the South Node is activated, it has a lot to do with the past and working through the past. In Scorpio is like the depths of our shadow, of our projections. It's the realm of the mysteries, of the hidden, of the other side of the veil, of this alchemical death, rebirth, and transformation process. And on the 20th, this point of the past will be transited by Psyche, which is an archetype that has been activated immensely over the past couple of lunations. We've dove into it extensively over on Patreon. Psyche represents the feminine initiation process. Okay? Actually, I have it right here. We'll just read this right here. I just had this up for a client. How do we make this bigger? Okay, so Psyche in Greek mythology, Psyche is a human being. She is actually the first human in Greek mythology to ever ascend from humanhood to godhood. And she does so through very harsh trials and tribulations that are triggered through relationship dynamics between her and Eros or Cupid and his mother, Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. It's a super long myth. I'm not going to get into it now. But the gist of it is, through these trials and tribulations and initiations, she ascends from humanhood to godhood. And ultimately, her and her lover get to live happily ever after on Mount Olympus, and they both are immortal and gods in the end, right? Psyche represents the initiation process of the feminine part of our psyche. Astrologically, it represents psychic and physical bonding, erotic love, raw, especially while in Scorpio, raw psychological wounds, recovery, the ascension of the soul. Psyche we think of as the mind because of like the word psychology and whatnot, but psyche is a Greek word that actually means soul. And it's the soul's quest for immortality, which we can see the elites trying to find in the realm of technology that many of us have already found in this realm of spirituality where we connect with the divine and we know that we are one with all that is, and that means we never die, so we are immortal. And this happens through this ascension of the soul. This knowledge is obtained through this ascension of the soul, and we obtain immortality, right? This asteroid is also connected to the recognition of childhood trauma, vulnerability, memories. Being as though it's in Scorpio, the realm of like that which we have repressed, and it is conjunct the South Node, expect a lot of memories that reside around the wounding from past relationships, whether it be this lifetime or other lifetimes, to bubble up in order for you to work through. It also represents insight and psychic impressionability, psychological recovery, the state of your mental health. Some students of Jungian psychology have chosen the Psyche myth to represent the female story, considering it symbolic of the effort to bring the unconscious up to the realm of consciousness, where the male myth is the Arthurian legend of the Holy Grail and the return of the feminine within from the masculine perspective, right? So this is going to be highlighted on the 20th, same day that Jupiter enters Aries, right before our solstice. So a lot will be bubbling up from the realm of the repressed, like so repressed that it didn't even happen in this lifetime, in order for us to work through. And so if you have sort of like these karmic initiatory tests coming forth, lean in to them in order to alchemize them. And if you do, like, you're literally rewriting timelines. You're literally rewriting timelines. Yeah, it has been a wild year. Okay. On the 21st is the winter solstice. Now, we are going to be talking extensively about the energy of the winter solstice, about this Axis Mundi, during the live stream on the 19th when we discuss the Capricorn new moon, which is on the 23rd. I'm not going to get too far into it now. In short, it's one of our 8 yearly solar holidays that tracks the sun through the wheel of the year. Here in the north, it is our longest night. You guys down south, it's your longest day. And it represents this extreme polarity, right? This is the peak of the cosmic womb, the peak of the realm of the goddess for us here in the northern hemisphere. The sun will be entering Capricorn on that day in an exact square to Jupiter, who just entered Aries. The powers so Capricorn governs those powers that want to be, and also our own personal authority. The authority we give away to those powers that want to be, and also the authority that we take back. The solstices and the equinox points are key points in their initiation of agendas, especially this one when the sun is in Capricorn, because it's literally their realm. It will be in a square to Jupiter, which is one of astrology's benefics. It will help to blow up whatever it is that's set forth during this time. It will require some sort of action to be taken. So expect there to be some sort of action taken by the world stage towards the end of the month. I mean, it's just a couple of days. It's literally a week before the third and final exact pass of America's Pluto return, which is something I have dove into before. I dove into it last month in the November video. I also dove into it in another video that is linked down below. For reference, this is what happened on the other passes of both America and the Illuminati's Pluto return, both of which are exact this year because both of which were developed in 1776. America on July 4th, 1776, and the Bavarian Illuminati in Germany. Dude, we are in the midst of some giant Nazi ritual right now, pretty much. We'll talk about that later this month, but shit is weird out there. Bavarian Illuminati was developed or originated on May 1st, 1776. Supposedly it has since disbanded. It wasn't around very long, but I don't buy that at all. So, connected to America's Pluto return. The first pass of America's Pluto return was in February. That exact day, Russia invaded the Ukraine and pretty much kicked off World War III, which is ultimately what they are tying this narrative to. The second pass during its retrograde, huge events popped off all over the world, including massive protests, which is something we see happening again right now. And then this is the third and final pass. We already see big things coming out of the Ukraine. I heard Zelensky literally declared war on the Orthodox Church today because they're all working with Russia, and he's arresting priests. Like, this very much speaks to that Jupiter square. Jupiter literally governs priests and religion. And yeah, so we can expect to see big things come through this Pluto return later, and also this solstice point here as well. The events tied to the Illuminati's Pluto return are pretty interesting too. The first one was back in April, and that day, like, so many different world leaders and organizations just started throwing around the words New World Order, New World Order, New World Order. Like, everybody just found a way to say it, from Biden to the World Economic Forum. Like, everybody was just saying these words. During the during its retrograde in April, Moderna put in for FDA approval. Before that, it was just emergency authorization. So they put in for their approval during the retrograde. That was the day it stationed retrograde. They put in the approval. The second pass, the World Economic Forum was in Davos, and they were saying things like, by 2033, your cell phone will be in your body. And they were also pushing for digital currency, which is something we see coming back up again now. And so the final pass of the Illuminati's Pluto return is in January, on January 24th. Now, this is something I dove into extensively in videos linked down below. The November video that I did last month, and the one that's like literally called the Pluto return of America and the Illuminati. I would look those up. I would watch those if I were you, because we are in the end of that which we have been going through since, for a long time, for a really long time, but we've really been feeling these exact passes since February. So that should be fun. Let me see what you guys are saying here. Please do your book. Please, I will buy it. Oh, so the first book I'm going to do is a divination book. So it's going to be, so I do a lot of like bibliomancy, which is divination with books. Like, I will just randomly pick up a certain book on a certain topic, and I will like flip to a certain page, kind of like pulling a tarot card, but like through that book. And so I want to make a bibliomancy book, a divination book, that is just a bunch of the stuff I've already written, like all through like my Patreon posts and all of the stuff, my Instagram posts and stuff, compiling all the stuff that I've already written that's out there on the internet, and then it's just going to be like a flip to the page book. I might have it come with dice that you roll for each page to see like which number, but I'm not sure about that yet. But that's my first book. And then my second book is going to be a book on Galactic Esoteric Astrology, where I take all of the information I've been compiling for all of my Patreon videos and the research on each of the signs and all these points, and I'm going to put that all into a whole book. But these are like grandiose thoughts that I don't necessarily have the discipline in order to like do. So I'm hoping Capricorn season helps. Yeah, you do the same thing with your books. Yes, I love it. It helps me use a lot of the books that like I won't necessarily get around to reading anytime soon, which is a lot of them. But I use so many of my books often. Okay, where are we at? December 21st. The sun will enter Capricorn, and it will be in a square to Jupiter. This is a really, really big day. I don't know what's going to transpire on the collective stage, but I can expect it to be big. And for us too, in our reality, in our own personal reality, where is Capricorn for you? Where is Aries for you? This is a very strong square between our sun, our vitality, our purpose, our identity. Squaring Aries, I'm squaring Jupiter in Aries, which represents this sort of pioneer. Jupiter is starting this new 12-year cycle of the zodiac. It's the higher self transiting through the zodiac, and it's starting a new story. It's finished. It just graduated. It knows more than it did 12 years ago. And so looking back to see where your life was 12 years ago can help you to kind of see the same area that is being affected, but from a higher perspective because of all of the work that we just did over the last 12-year period, which for me was a lot. Like 12 years ago, Jesus Christ, I can't even remember that year. That whole year is a blur. Okay, so what is that, 2010? Oh Lord, yeah, that was a really bad year. Oh my God. Okay, so Venus will trine Uranus retrograde on the 22nd. So we already had Mercury come into this trine with the North Node, Venus come into this trine with the North Node, and now Venus and Mercury come into a trine with Uranus, and now Venus is coming into that trine with Uranus. We've been feeling this for a while now. This is a beneficial aspect. A trine is a harmonious, free-flowing aspect. Venus and Uranus on a personal level will speak very much to like liberation and freedom and excitement when it comes to our relationships. Now, that's cool and all, and I'm sure it will be great for all of us. Now, I'm looking at this more on like a world stage level because, okay, Venus has to do with relationships. It's in the house of world governments at this time, conjunct Mercury, who makes announcements. Also very close to Pluto, which is the planet of power, which is aligned with both America and Illuminati's Pluto right now. These points will both transit over this right around the time that we're having that return, and they're making a trine to this North Node Uranus conjunction. Now, the last time Uranus was in Taurus was World War II. A lot of this Uranian energy coming through Taurus is echoes of technology that first started developing during World War II, whether it be mind control technology, rocketry, UFOs, all of the bombs, all of these things were developed during that time. And they're going to be working harmoniously with Venus, our relationships, our world government relationships, the message coming through, and the planet of power, which has already been tied to the World War III narrative since the beginning, since the invasion of the Ukraine from Russia. Who's in on this whole thing? They're all in on this whole thing. Okay, you guys are talking to each other. Okay, so on the 23rd is our Capricorn new moon, which is conjunct the galactic center. So it falls at 2 degrees of Capricorn. So it's in Capricorn. The galactic center is in Sagittarius, but it's still very much conjunct that point in opposition to the pole star, and on that same day, Chiron stations direct. Okay, so Chiron has been doing a lot of healing and a lot of internalizing and processing, and now it's going to be stationing direct. And so a lot of what was processed is now coming up for us to access the wisdom that it held. We're now in the process of integrating what we learned while deep inside processing our traumas and our wounds, and now we're working on embodying the elixir that we found and then coming out into the world to help share it with other people as well. Ultimately, this literally governs the coming out into the world. Capricorn governs how you're seen in the public sphere, ultimately. Your mission, your purpose as well, that midheaven, that top of the chart. Okay, so we will be talking so much about this moon later in the month. I'm not going to get too deep into it now, but on the 23rd, we have a Capricorn new moon, so we will be starting a new chapter in the area of our life that is ruled by Capricorn. So look to see, what house does Capricorn fall for you? For me, it's my 5th house, which is my house of creative expression. The house where you are the creator. It also has a lot to do with children and romance and hobbies. And this is where we will be starting a new chapter that will culminate 6 months from now. This chapter is being guided by the center of our galaxy, and it is aligning with this Axis Mundi. And so it would be a really ideal time to set intentions around embodying that middle pillar within, rectifying those two polarizing forces within, and solidifying our connection to the divine. So it's actually really beautiful. Solidifying our connection to that singularity with the divine, and then helping us to keep that and embody that while traversing the Saturnian Capricornian world that we all live in. Because Saturn governs that which we can see, right? Abby says Capricorn is her first house. So it's a really great time to set intentions around your identity, who you are, what it is you came here to do, that pioneering force, that driving force that is you, right? Which has been completely transformed since about 2008 when Pluto first moved into Capricorn. All right, Chiron direct. I don't need to talk about the 24th. Okay, so on the 26th, I am really zeroing in on this date as significant to their ritual. On the 26th, Mars, which has been retrograde throughout Orion, the constellation of Orion, which is in the name of the shuttle that they plan to take to Mars, and innately tied to the same sort of mythology. It's believed that the ETs in the Orion constellation are very strongly tied to the ETs in the Aldebaran system, which are the Nordic ETs that the Nazi occultists and channels, particularly the women from the Vril Society in Germany, were channeling, that gave Hitler's scientists all the information they needed to build their spaceships. And then, once we defeated the Nazis, which we didn't defeat the Nazis are still everywhere. Once we defeated the Nazis, America took half of their scientists, Russia took half of their scientists, and the space race started because we got those Nazi scientists. And this space race is innately tied to the Mars narrative, the Aldebaran narrative, and the Orion narrative, which are all things that Gigi covers fabulously in her Mars Mystery series, and we will be talking about later this month when we go into our rabbit hole. But on the 26th, Mars retrograde will exactly conjunct the star Aldebaran, which, like I said, is supposedly where these Nordic ETs reside, that these German occultists and channels were channeling, that gave the Nazis all of the information that now our governments and the Russian government are using for ultimately this war that we are going to all have to live through, because I don't think we're getting out of this without World War III. It's in their playbook. So the 26th, which is 2 days before America's final pass of the Pluto return, and right before Mercury stations retrograde in Capricorn, it's gonna be crazy, you guys. The end of this month is gonna be far out. You guys already see it. So many different things happened today. I couldn't even keep track of all of the different shit that they're doing. And it's been like this since last month when I first started. She says, I want to learn more about Nazi occultism, but I'm scared. Nazi occultism is very strongly rooted in what people think is like the dark occult, and they do have that, the Black Sun and whatnot. A lot of it is rooted in light-based occultism. Like Hitler was obsessed with Apollo. He was obsessed with solar cults, and he was really obsessed with like the masculine polarity, but like inverting it in order to then access like the feminine aspects of it, but while still really residing within the masculine realm. I don't think you really need to dive into Nazi occultism, but you can dive into, their historical connections to like the information that a lot of places now kind of spout as truth in the new age. It's very interesting. The Nazis are fucking everywhere, man. But if you want to dive into some of the Nazi connections, I would recommend that Mars Mystery series from Gigi Young. Also, Robert Suffer has a lot of really good videos, but he has not the same view as me. He leans more on that side. He leans more on the side of the right, and he definitely doesn't look at it the same way I do, but his historical research is very interesting. And we'll be talking about it later this month, so you can come and join me. And we'll talk about that on the 27th here on YouTube when we dive into part 2 of the rabbit hole. So Mars will be conjunct Aldebaran on the 26th, and then America's final exact pass of its Pluto return will be on the 28th, earlier in the day. Hold on, I just want to see. So actually really early in the day, like 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time will be when it will be exact. So I wouldn't be surprised if we literally wake up the morning of the 28th to some huge news. Because they have tied very significant things to all of these passes, and this is their last chance to tie something to it. Like I said, the first time, Russia invaded Ukraine. The second time, there were protests everywhere and really big things were popping off. I can't really remember what, but I know I talked about it in the video down below. And then the day after, so we have Mars conjunct Aldebaran, which is they will love. The occultists in power will love this and will use this for something. What? I have no idea. But they will. And the 28th, we have the last pass of America's Pluto return, and then on the 29th, Mercury stations retrograde. It's actually stationing at the time of America's Pluto return. It's stationing conjunct Pluto. Oh my god, it's going to be so big. The end of the month is going to be huge, you guys. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we're like full blown in war at that point in time. It's going to be big. And like I said, then we're going to move into the Illuminati's Pluto return next month, and that's why we can see so many different rituals happening simultaneously that has this sort of like Illuminati stream, this Masonic stream, this Nazi German stream, which is the Illuminati is from Germany. It's gonna, I don't know. We'll talk about this after some more shit goes down this month. It'll be part of our rabbit hole, but the end of the month is intense, especially since the Pluto's third and final exact pass happens the same time that Mercury is preparing to station. It's standing still, conjuncted with Venus. Venus is relationships. Capricorn is world governments. Mercury is the message and the information being told to people. And Pluto is the planet of power. And it is conjunct America's Pluto. Oh my gosh, it's gonna, I don't know, man. I don't know, but we can expect to see something probably out of the Ukraine and probably having to do with our involvement with it. Mercury will station retrograde on the 29th, and Venus will be conjuncted. So it will have a lot to do with relationships, but the relationships are between world governments ultimately, but also us. Like, look and see where Capricorn falls in your chart. We're having stuff happen there too, but I can't even pay attention to our personal lives right now. I think it's going to be a big collective shift for us. And then on the 31st, Venus will exactly conjunct Pluto. So the whole end of the month, Venus will then transit over America's Pluto and the current Pluto placement, right as Mercury stations retrograde, all in Capricorn, the sign that literally governs all pyramidal structures of hierarchy, including our world governments. So this should be fun. And we're going to talk about this a lot more as we get towards the end of the month. Okay, I'm done with this month. Fally says, so travel at the end of December is not recommended. LOL. Well, I don't like to follow rules. Like, if you give me a rule, I'm gonna fucking break it. Now, astrologers say that you shouldn't be traveling and making, like, signing contracts and doing things during Mercury retrograde. What house is Capricorn in for you, Fally? I mean, if you're called to do it, especially if you're being gravitationally pulled in certain directions, go for it. Maybe you'll have traveled to the place that's safe from whatever fuckery is going on in whatever other place, you know? So I would trust wherever you're being guided. Don't let any of this prevent you from traveling, but yeah, it's not necessarily recommended with Mercury retrograde, but you know me, I don't follow the rules. Okay, I pulled some cards, so we are going to go to the cards and then we're going to call it a night. Okay, so I pulled way more cards than I normally do. And I pulled from a new deck. So that one there that is the bull, that is from my new deck that I just got at the library. So I don't know if you guys know this, but this is like one of my favorite places to get books. Most libraries have like a little Friends of the Library bookshop where you can like buy books, and they're usually like 25 cents or 50 cents. I actually got a whole bag, a big brown paper bag the other day of, I filled up the whole bag and it was $2. You guys, I got the fucking coolest books. Oh my gosh. This book, I would have paid beyond full price for this book. Okay, I have to just come here for a second so you guys can see my face. So I don't know what's going on in the library, but I think they're pulling all of the conspiracy books off the shelf, because normally I go and there'll be like one book I like or two books I like. I never get a whole bag of books, but there were so many books and they were all library books with the thing that was getting pulled off. Books about like UFOs and Bigfoot, and this is an Atlantis book. So this is the Atlantis Encyclopedia. I have another book by this guy, The Destruction of Atlantis by Frank Joseph. But I have never seen this book before. I did not know about this book. This book is so fucking cool. And I found this book at the library the exact second that the asteroid Atlantis transited over Saturn in the sky. Saturn is like grounded and practical. And what's so interesting is that this is like a grounded, practical collection of like, so it's like literally encyclopedia of all world flood myths, all of these different accounts of past floods and connections to like this sort of Atlantean narrative, not necessarily Atlantis itself, but just like pre-Diluvian civilizations. It takes a lot of like the theories and that like new age fucking bullshit out of it, and it has facts, which is Saturn. And I was like, oh my god. And I literally got this book for, I don't know, a couple of cents. And then I got like a book on tarot and aromatherapy and whatnot. But they also had this oracle deck, which I pretty much paid nothing for. And it's the Druid Animal Oracle deck. And so the first card I pulled was from that. We probably won't use these too much because the descriptions are really really long, but we're going to go ahead and read this because the card I pulled is the bull, which Aldebaran is the eye of the bull. And so this is where a lot of that bull symbolism comes into. Oh, I did a whole video on Aldebaran too. It's not linked down below. It's available to all you Patreon members, but I'll link it after this. I'm not promising I will look at this note, but I wrote it, and if you look later and that video's there, leave me a comment and say thank you. Just kidding. Okay, so the first card I pulled is the bull. And so I'm going to go ahead and read this. Oh, Nicole, you have this? She says, I love that Druid animal deck. Yes. Indigo says, when I hear the word Atlantis, I get a weird feeling. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm legitimately obsessed with the mystery of Atlantis, but that asteroid's conjunct my sun, so I don't think I really have a choice. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and read some of this from the book. We're not going to read all of it, but we'll read some of it. These are the cards I pulled for the energy of the month. The fact that I pulled this bull when I'm like zeroing in on this Aldebaran fucking ritual, this Aldebaran Nazi ritual, ultimately, like, wow. How much Nazi talking points are coming up into the mainstream narrative right now is just mind-blowing. So anyway, the bull, which in Celtic, the Gaelic language, I first would like to apologize to my ancestors for butchering our language. I'm so very sorry. I grew up in California. So, the Gaelic name for bull is, I'm just going to spell it because I don't really know how to say it, but it's Tarbh. Tarb? I don't know. Torb? But you definitely can see the TAR as that beginning of Taurus, right? Which is what Aldebaran is the eye of the bull of Taurus, which I go into in a whole video, which I will also link that, about how the bull is not a bull and it was a cow, and how it represents the divine feminine that has been ultimately turned masculine. But that's in another video down below. Will be down below. Okay, the bull. It represents wealth, potency, and benevolence. So, both, Squirty, stop biting. Both Sagittarius and Capricorn represent this. Sagittarius literally governs abundance and growth and this sort of quest for such things. And then we find a lot of these things in Capricorn, which literally represents wealth. Squirty, you need to stop scratching. Where do I put the post-it note? Okay, here. Okay. Nope, that's not it. Okay. All right, so the card shows a bull roaring with 3 cranes circling the air above, and with the leaves of a willow tree in the foreground. 2 Celtic monuments carved in the 1st century both show a bull with 3 cranes and a willow tree. The cranes in the card remind us that although the bull is an animal representing the earth, like Taurus, right, and an earth sign, he is also linked with the sky and the heavens, which I talk about in that video, this like cosmic cow, this like divine cow goddess that is represented in the sky. We see the bull's testes, which remind us of the association of the bull with fertility. Early Druid shaman rattles were shaped in the form of bull's testes, and one is shown lying on the grass. To the left, we see a Bronze-aged Druid horn, whose sound mimics the bull's roar. The bull mediates the influence of Taranis, which is the Jupiter-like god of the Druids. Interesting, all the Jupiter influence we have this month as well. Whose benevolence and expansiveness, much like Jupiter, can bring you the opportunity for a rich and abundant life. The bull is a symbol of wealth, and as such, it is auspicious to draw this card when considering financial matters. It's also auspicious moving into Capricorn season where we can set intentions around this. But remember that the ancient ones were wise enough to understand that true wealth is to be found in the heart and the soul first, and only then in the material world. The bull represents fertility, potency, abundance, and prosperity. But these things can sometimes take a while to achieve. If you need to work steadfastly in trying, Square, you go lay down. If you need to work steadfastly in trying circumstances for a considerable period of time in order to achieve your goals, the bull will help you to do this without becoming drained or depressed. The tradition of the bull. I am the bull of 7 battles. The Celtic inhabitants of Britain were cattle people. Cattle were central to their economy and their way of life, and the number of cattle owned was an indicator of wealth. The bull in particular became associated with the concept of wealth, both in its financial and in its wider sense, indicating power, prosperity, and fertility. The bull appeared frequently on Celtic coins, and a trace of its early association with prosperity lingers in our use of the term, quote, a bull market, to describe a rising stock market. A further link with prosperity comes from the bull's association with the Celtic god Taranis, a god of thunder and lightning like Jupiter, oak trees, and like Zeus. He's the same as Zeus. This deck came with all these blank cards, like 3 blank cards that were in this book. I'm not really sure what to do with them, but I think I'm going to draw my animals on them, like my 2 cats and my dog. Okay, what was I doing? Okay, so it's associated with that god of thunder, oak trees, and the wheel of the seasons, so much like the solstices and the equinoxes, or the stars. Taranis is a sky father god of plenty, comparable to Zeus and Jupiter. The central role that cattle played in the life of our ancestors meant that the health and fertility of the herd were of vital importance. Fertility was understood in its broadest sense to include abundance of crops and livestock, creative works and children. Animal seed, crop seed, and human seed were not seen as separate and independent, but as interdependent facets of Mother Nature's fertility. The fate of each I can never say this word, inextricably bound up with that of others. Bulls, in their castrated form as oxen, provided early communities with their power supply, pulling the plow and drawing water. Fun fact, Mormons, and I did a video, this was in one of the videos I did on Taurus, Mormons are baptized in this little pool of water that sit on top of, I think, 8 castrated oxen, which is interesting to me. And I talk about it in that video. Okay. In Britain and Ireland, brawn horns and rattles were used in Druid ceremonies to summon the spirits and induce awe in the participants. Both these instruments indicate the reverence that was paid to the bull as a sacred animal. The horns were shaped like a cow's or bull's horns and emit a powerful, rich note with full harmonics, sounding like an Australian Aboriginal. The rattles, an Australian Aboriginal didgeridoo, probably a rattle. The rattles, known as crooktails, were bronze imitations of the bull's sack, with pebbles or balls of clay inside. Although the bull is most clearly an earth animal, its horns form the shape of a crescent moon, and I talk about how the moon is exalted in Taurus in that video and how it's innately lunar, and point to the sky, connecting him to the stars. And they are used as ceremonial drinking cups this day in Druid ceremonies. Okay, So this next part is called the ritual sacrifice of the bull. I want to kind of just point out a couple things. They talked about how the bull is tied to the stock market and the realm of currency. And we have had 3 different crypto bajillionaires, or however, billionaires or whatever, crypto moguls randomly die, most of which were probably murdered over the past week. And I wrote here, is this a ritual sacrifice of the bull? The killing of these crypto dudes? Also, the bull is one of the constellations that we can see in the night sky. It's up in the sky for us to see right now. Oh, Abby says all of these energies tie into her big 3, Sag, Sun, Cap, Rising, Taurus, Moon. Oh, I love it. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and read this last bit about the sacrifice of the bull, and then we're going to move on. I also wrote here, so not only do we have the 3 crypto dudes being killed that could represent these bulls, these bull sacrifices, but we also have this Balenciaga shit coming up. And apparently Balenciaga means, I mean, you can translate it 2 different ways in Latin, one of which is pretty much attributed to like do as thou wilt, like Crowley's slogan, Aleister Crowley's slogan. And the other one is Baal is king. And Baal is a Canaanite god in the Semitic religions that is attributed with the bull and human sacrifice. So that's fun. Okay, the ritual sacrifice of bulls. In early Irish rituals of bull sleep, the king of Tara was chosen in the following way. The bull was ritually slain, and a medium ate the flesh and drank the broth in which the meat had been cooked. As the medium slept, wrapped in the bull's hide, a truth spell was chanted over him by 4 druids, and a dream vision was given in which the rightful king appeared. Interesting that the king is here too. The slaying of bulls was clearly deeply significant to the Celts. The Gunstrup cauldron shows 3 bulls being killed, and it seems that at some times gateway ceremonies were performed which involved the sacrifice of bulls and their burial by the entrance. The Gaulish sanctuary of Gournay, the evidence shows that animals were old, 10 years or more, before they were slaughtered. That's nice. In Scottish tradition, to dream of a bull was said to be a sign of help about to arrive. And in Pliny, it is recorded that 2 white bulls were ritually slain at the foot of an oak tree when the mistletoe was cut from its boughs by the druids. A memory of this arcane rite may linger in the naming of great hollow oaks in England as, quote, bull oaks. But country folks say that they are so called because bulls shelter inside them. I don't believe that. In this way, bringing together 2 of the major symbols of the god, oaks and bull. And they love their oak groves. Let's not forget how much they love their oak groves, these elite motherfuckers. Indigo says, I was just thinking about that bull god and the sacrifices. Yeah, we're going to talk about that a lot more in the rabbit hole video later this month. The Balenciaga, yeah, we'll talk about that. But it's so orchestrated, it's part of the ritual. I don't want to give it too much attention, but it's super part of the ritual. Okay, so I pulled some archetype cards, right? I'm like, what is the archetype of this month that we're working on embodying? And the card that I pulled was the King. And then I always look to see the card at the bottom of the deck, because that's that like unseen influence that's feeding that which we can see, which is the card we pulled, the King. And that unseen influence was literally the card, the Unseen. So we have this sort of masculine energy that we see, you know, we're in this fire, air elements, this sort of masculine polarity, but it, like I've said throughout this whole video, this unseen feminine impulse is what is guiding us through this time. So I'll go ahead and read these from this book. And then this is the card of how to kind of navigate this, how to navigate this energy throughout the month. Nourishing roots. And I love how this speaks to that Axis Mundi and the need to ground down into the feminine in order to become the king we are meant to be. Okay. Where are my books? Oh, here. The king. The ruler, the commander, the emperor. Which is really, I do think we're going to be seeing a lot coming from the realm of Capricorn this month, and the rulers and the commanders of our reality, right? But we are also the ruler and commander of our reality, because while Capricorn governs all outside authorities and the power that we relinquish to them, it also governs our reclaiming of our own personal authority, which is ultimately found at the top of that Axis Mundi. Okay. If our lives are imagined as a kingdom containing the entire spectrum of human experience, the king presides over it all. Through the lens of the king, we assess the state of our land, make decisions, and rule accordingly. Therefore, the king must be thoroughly and regularly vetted as to avoid corruption. Recognize the dual nature of the king. He is either seated in benevolence and strength, guiding you towards peace, or he is oppressing the weak out of a need to control. I think we're going to be seeing that lighter version in our reality. There is not much middle ground. Some think of the king as the ultimate expression of the ego. Yet the great kings of mythology and history serve from an egoless place. They take their throne with grace and humility, knowing the divine uses them as a channel to heal deep and long-standing discrepancies in the kingdom. Once the king's relationship to divinity is broken or challenged, he often acts from a place of fear, scrambling to uphold his image and power. The king is necessary. He is a bridge between the eternal and the day-to-day. It is also said that it is necessary for the king to die. This is an ego death. When this archetype is evolved, it represents benevolence, divine leadership, service, and nobility. But and these are all things we can work to embody during this time. But when in its lower archetype, it represents oppression, misuse of power, and corruption, which is honestly where I think the world is going this month, while we are meant to embody this divine leadership, this service, and this connection to the divine, right? And so the king is being guided by these unseen forces, and we are able to connect to the unseen despite what the kings of our reality bestow upon us over the next couple of months, right? So the unseen. The unseen, the spirit, the ancestor, the eternal. The unseen is just as it sounds. We cannot see it, yet it sees us, watching and waiting with wisdom, both kind and instructive. We feel this presence, sense it, intuit, and then doubt its existence, though it rallies our attention time and time again. This is that gravitational force that's going to be pushing us throughout this month from all of these places, right? The energy of the unseen may come in many forms. A compelling dream. I don't know why I didn't say this the whole time. All of that is Neptune squares speak very heavily to dreams. I don't know if I said dreams at all during that whole time. But Neptune governs dreams, especially what's in Pisces. Pay attention to your dreams, but they're going to be so cryptic. Don't take them literally, but pay attention to them. The energy of the unseen may come in many forms: a compelling dream, a sudden insight, a clear voice, a vision or message from a loved one who has passed to the other side. It is natural to fear these communications as they challenge our perception of what is real. When this card appears, our guides are near. The eternal is present. The doorway between worlds is ajar. Listen. The sounds may seem as though they come from a distant land, but they call from your innermost chambers. Being graced by the unseen is a gift. Treat it kindly. Allow yourself to be seen by eternal eyes. Guidance comes in many forms. Don't expect it to be glittery or comfortable. The spirit world speaks the truth. Sometimes it soothes and sometimes it burns. When this archetype is evolved, it represents clairvoyant guidance and whispers of wisdom, which is ultimately what we need to lean into this month. Is these clairvoyant guidance, these whispers of wisdom, and these gravitational pulls in whatever direction. When this archetype is manifesting in its lower octave, it can represent dark and looming energy and an unwillingness to forgive. And it says to go deeper, you can read about the 3 fates in Greek mythology. Last card. So I pull this final card from this other deck, the Wild Harmonic Oracle, and I'm like, okay, how do we do this, right? These are the archetypes present. This bull, the king, the unseen, which is literally, like, these cards are freakishly accurate, you guys. This is like all the astrology that I just talked about. Wow. And so this card is like, okay, how do we best navigate this? I love this deck. It's broken up into all the different elements. It has the element of water, earth, air, fire, the celestial realm, the dimensional realm, the spiritual realm, and the shadow realm. And each card is a mixture of 2 of those. And so this is water and earth, which really speaks to once we move into Capricorn season. And we have that Capricorn new moon in earth. And we have the Cancer full moon in water. And it says here, nourishing roots, where we can ground down into that world tree, right? So I'll go ahead and read this and we'll call it a night. I can hear the cats out there with their little dingle bell. Okay, water of earth. As the flowing feeling of life embodies into the earth energies as we move into Capricorn season, a reaching into the depths returns a bounty of enrichment. Utilization of resources, nourishing the many sides of myself and learning. Utilization of resources, nourishing the many sides of myself and the learning and knowing of what I need. This is a card of good medicine, connecting with myself in the inner and outer. The inner and outer. In ways that nourish, heal, and revitalize. It shows me how to wind around obstacles in order to reach my needs and sink the roots from which I can arise. There is something just out of my awareness, something down in the depths beyond my knowing, but I know it is what I need, and I let desire fuel and guide my reaching these gravitational pulls. The nourishment I draw into me feeds both my striving for the light and my digging into the dark. Nourishment grants me greater ability at finding further nourishment. Inquiry. How can I locate and reach the deep nourishment that I desire? These cards are freakishly accurate. Like, wow. Okay. I didn't read any of these things from the books before I did that. I just pulled the cards and then I marked the pages. I did read the bull one. I read the bull one. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for being here with me. I know it's like super late. What time is it? Oh my gosh. 12:36. So thank you for being here. We will meet later this month on Patreon for the 2 moon videos. The link to join is down below. Our next meeting will be on Monday the 5th to discuss that Gemini new moon, which sits opposite the Great Attractor, the same day as that Mars eclipse and Venus conjuncts the Galactic Center. It's a huge moon. Oh my gosh. And it's a new moon. So, no, it's a full moon. I wrote that wrong. This is a Gemini full moon, not a Gemini new moon. It says new moon on the calendar. It's a full moon. So it's an illumination in the area of your life that is Gemini. We're going to be talking about it on Monday in depth. And you guys, my chart is like hella lit up right now. And it's like all my weird planets that are like plugged into black holes and like Uranus, these weird Uranian insights that come through. I have a feeling it's going to be a good video. So that'll be on the 5th. On the 13th, we'll meet here on YouTube to read the rest of that book. Not the rest, to read a little bit more of the book. Part 1 is down below. On the 19th, we will meet to discuss the Capricorn new moon, which is on the 23rd, that sits conjunct the galactic center right as Chiron stations direct. And then at the end of the month, I think it's going to be on the 27th. I don't know. 27th is the day before America's Pluto return. Maybe I want to... And Venus conjuncts it on the 31st. You guys, maybe part 2... Maybe it will be the first. Maybe it will be the first week of January. I don't know. I feel like that last week so much is going to go down. It's going to be... Maybe we'll do a part 2 and then a part 3 because I'm sure there'll be more. I don't know. But the rabbit hole video will be on the 27th. So we still have 4 videos this month. 2 of them are here on YouTube, a rabbit hole and the book that we're reading. And then the 2 moon videos are only on Patreon. Yeah, it was really great card pull. I guess maybe I will use those druid cards some more because that shit was on point. It just has a really long description. It's really long. It's kind of hard to like read that all here, but I wanted to break them in. All right, guys, have a great night. Those of you who are Patreon members, I will see you over on Discord, and we will talk later. Bye. Thanks for being here, guys. I like it when you guys are here live. It's easier for me to talk to people. Even sometimes there's just like one of you guys here. But when I know like there's somebody there, I feel like I can like talk naturally because I feel like I'm talking to a person.